Good evening. This is the joint meeting of the Capital Outlay Committee and the Finance Committee for Monday, March 6, 2023. You want to call your meeting and then we'll do the pledge.
Sure. I'd like to open the Capital Outlay Committee for March 6, 2023 at 6:36 p.m.
Could all rise for the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Good evening.
Who's that?
Area 58 will be recording this tonight for us. Thank you.
Did you guys go there today?
I don't think there's any public comment.
No, we never did. Oh, really? Yeah, we went at noon time. Oh, he was smart.
Capital Outlay Committee will take up the school, and then we're just going to comment from the FinCom standpoint. So the first part of this thing is all you, Madam Chair.
She's really getting her license up very highly of you.
Come on up.
It's nice of you. Alan, please. I was on the phone with him a week ago. He said, we're going to be going.
Good evening, everyone.
I said,
How are you?
Scott Nave, Superintendent of the Carver Public Schools.
we never got anything. Next time, copy me on it.
Artwork.
I would have liked to go. How did everyone go? Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about
See you.
the,
Thanks, Ross.
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, this is, I think you're up.
Started.
Yeah, you're
Started?
Hi, everyone. Well, thank you for having us. I'm going to get started with a amended presentation for the school department's capital plan. So we approved a plan back in the fall for FY24 through 28.
Hold on 1 second, Ron. Can you turn his microphone up a
I
little
can just
bit?
get closer, sorry.
Thank you.
Is that better?
Yes.
Sorry. So on slide 2, you can see we approved this fall with the school committee a plan for FY24 through 28. The district total request was over $870,000 for FY24. However, we recognize that the town has been working through a number that ultimately was just shy of $1 million, and $870,000 is obviously too large a piece of that pie. So we went back to the drawing board, sat down with our leadership team, and just reprioritized a lot of our requests for FY24, and that's what I'll be sharing with you today. If you look at slide 3, you can see that in collaboration with our colleagues in the town, we were able to reduce our request for FY24 from $870,000 to $343,000. And what I'll do in the next few minutes is itemize each of those for you. We break our capital into a couple of different buckets. So if you see on slide 4, that's a summary of our facilities and equipment bucket of capital, if you will, for FY24. The reductions that we proposed and that were approved by the school committee are the middle high school classroom modernization plan, essentially to cut that cost in half, as well as dropping the Pond Street Field Vitalization Phase 1, which would just be the design phase for that. In addition, thanks to support of the Board of Selectmen just the other night, who were able to approve a part of our culinary classroom pathway renovation. Using ARP funds, we were able to drop the culinary classroom renovation pathway of $185,000. So all in, that brings your facilities and equipment request from $406,000 to about $70,000 for FY24. The next bucket of capital funding requests is typically transportation. As a reminder, Carver Public Schools maintains and operates our own transportation program to get our students to and from school. That includes our special education students as well. A little bit of context for this, because our proposal will be to remove the entire request. So typically we purchase 1 to 2 buses a year, and that's really just based on the mileage and wear and tear for our buses. In the wake of COVID, we're seeing 18-month delays in the entire sector. So we actually have an article that we've already put purchase order for last year, which is a wheelchair bus that's not slated to be delivered to us until December, this upcoming December. So we use state contract mechanism for this, and there's actually only one vendor who carries the buses that we use and is on state contract. Anyway, point being, we don't want to queue up more than one project until we deliver on the very first project. So if there were ever a year that we needed to pause on this, this could be the year to do it. It would just be my request that in future years we continue with our replacement cycle. Otherwise, the bus fleet starts to break down on you.
So is there an advantage to holding off this year? And this, let's just take a different scenario for a moment. Let's say we put the bus back in. And you know me and buses. But let's say we put the bus back in. And that gets approved. You'd order that bus, you wouldn't see that bus for a year and a half.
It's true.
So by delaying it this year, you just push that can further down the road. Because I don't anticipate they're gonna have a miracle happen and you're gonna get a bus in 6 months, a year from now.
Well, a few months ago, it was 2 years out. And so it's down to 18 months. And my expectation would be, although I can't promise that, is that the sector catches up with other sectors in the world and starts to have a regular return process rather than this 18-month delay. Now, could it continue to have an 18-month delay? Of course it could. Could it be 2 years or 3 years? My gosh, it could. I hope it's not, but it certainly could. But our expectation is that it gets back to a normal turnaround, which is more like 3 months versus 18 months.
I find it difficult that I could sit here last Thursday night and preach to everyone in this room and everyone that saw the video that it was imperative that we stay on track with a 10-year capital plan. And I'm not comfortable sitting back, take all your capital requests off of this year, because it throws the plan under the bus, so to speak. The plan runs off the track, and there's only so far we can kick it. So if we have any ability, and this is just my personal, this is a capital outlay meeting, but this is only my personal observation. If we can find any way to put some of this capital back in and keep this capital plan on the tracks that it should be on, then that's obviously, I have no problem trying to do that. That's, I think, why we restored a lot of these capital items to tonight's budget, because we're trying to do some fancy footwork and try to get some stuff funded differently to put the money we've set aside back into capital and get this stuff back on track again, so.
I echo those sentiments. I think if we're successful in bonding other projects and bringing money back in, that we, even if we don't order them, let's set the placeholder for the bus money so that it's there when we're ready to order. Because there's no guarantee that money's gonna be available in future years, so if we have it this
That's right.
year, we should earmark it.
And Scott can't believe that I'm actually talking about you should go buy a bus.
We support your position of putting the bus back in.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I feel better now.
See, I'm a good influence on Alan.
So Beth, if I may?
Yes.
So later we'll be talking about putting money back into the capital by looking at these articles that we talk to the department heads and see if they used up what the articles were there for and the leftover monies. And there'll be about $427,000 right now. If we go to bonding and all those things, we can put another 2.15 in, or a total of over $2
We'll
million.
have a total of $2 million.
Back in.
That'll put the
The
entire
capital plan.
capital plan on
So,
track.
so that's the goal here.
Do you think you'll have those numbers by Thursday night when we meet again?
On which?
On, all of it?
On these? Yeah, there's a couple others, we're gonna wait till they were done.
Okay.
I don't know if you had a chance, Ron, to look at the articles that were,
We did, so we did take a look at those.
okay, and so you can get back to us on that.
We can go through it tonight if people want us to.
Hmm?
We're prepared to go through this tonight.
Okay, why don't you continue on, and then we'll go to that.
That was my 2 cents worth. I think we should try to keep capital
In
back
in
on.
all honesty, we weren't sure the amount of money that was gonna come back. We'd heard some discussion there might be some more money coming back in the capital, so we started to prioritize. And honestly, the buses were still on, and you may find this surprising, but the buses were still actually on the lower end of the priority list. So I guess let's see what the dollar amount is gonna come back, and then certainly if all our requests can go back in, we would certainly support that.
Be ideal.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to continue as if there's not the funding. So that's what you're getting presented as the amended component of capital for us. So if you take a look, please, at slide 6, you can see technology. And again, technology in this particular case, we propose to maintain the entire set of priorities for technology. Your total FY24 request being $273,000. A little aside on technology. So there's two projects in particular, the elementary and the middle high school technology plans, that are actually the last phases of multi-year plans, which is why those became really top priority for us when we had to really think about limited funds. We want to complete both those projects, otherwise we really get jammed up with just delivering the educational services at both those buildings. So what you see on your final slide is the summary. Again, all in, the amendments reduced the district's request from about $870,000 to $343,000. And you can see the summary of itemized items on the right-hand side.
And the only other thing I would point out, credit to Ron and the staff, is that, you know, the school district is constantly seeking grant opportunities, and we've actually received many grants over the last couple of years, both in support of our Pathways programs, but also just here reflected in the capital plan, you know, the $232,000 in school kitchen equipment replacement, $25,000 in middle high school lighting, $160,000 in Chromebooks, student devices. And so we're always looking to seek those federal and state grants. And we've actually in the last year or two been very successful in receiving some of those grants. So I just want to at least mention that at this meeting. Sure.
That's great.
Is the townwide technology upgrade, is that gonna be, and the townwide server replacement, is that gonna be for the benefit of the whole town, or that just the school?
That is the whole town.
The whole town.
That's correct.
Townwide, at our Saturday meeting,
Speak into the mic.
Stephen had said at the Saturday meeting that the $58K was actually for town hall computer replacements.
Okay. Okay.
Can I ask a question? I know it's scratched off, but the Pond Street field revitalization, does that belong to the school? Is that why it's on the school budget?
That's correct. So it's actually a partnership that we began with Recreation. I'll give you 30 seconds of context on it. We did this presentation with the school committee sort of in greater detail. So Pond Street was actually, it's got 3 fields over there, one of which ended up being a space where some of the additional fill from the stadium project was placed. Now that fill has been removed, the field does need to be revitalized if you want to have practices and those sorts of things on it. It typically had been a field that youth programs had used as well as the athletics programs. So we had proposed a CPC project a few months ago with CPC, joint, again, between the recreation department and the school department, sort of town school department collaboration. We hadn't yet heard back from CPC on whether or not that's been included in the CPC article ultimately, but the goal would be, if there were additional funds to bring that back, that we'd begin phase 1 design. We got a quote directly from a design firm that we've used, that the town has used in other projects as well. And if it was approved, then that would be something we'd go out for a bid on.
So that design was already done a few years ago
No,
by Recreation, because I saw the presentation of it.
Yes.
So it's already been done. But I'm wondering if Recreation still has that design, why pay, if it could be used, maybe it's just some validity to it now, then pay somebody to do it again.
It's a valid question. And I'll be frank with you, when I talked with Recreation, that part of the project hadn't come up. So we brought it up as a long-term project opportunity and engaged Recreation in the conversation. But I recognize that even with that team, they've got some new staff members as well. So we'll be happy to double check and take a look at it.
This lends more to the argument that recreation needs to be a department in this town, not a committee of volunteers. It should be a department in this town. It should work in collaboration with the schools, and it should just be a funded department. There should be a department head, and there should be perhaps some staff. But recreation is no longer just a meet once a month kind of a group that keeps some soccer balls in the closet down the hallway. It's something that should be promoted. It's something that should be developed. And it's if it wasn't for the 2 that we have on it, if it wasn't for Emily and Mary, you'd have a hard time having a recreation committee, because they do it all. And I think it should be a department.
I think we voted town meeting to approve a budget for that also a few years ago, for that study. So I think
We may have.
documented.
You may have.
On the report that we got tonight, there's a new O&M line called repaint tennis and basketball courts at the middle high school. Do you know what that one is?
It is just that, it's repainting those sets of courts.
Okay.
Yeah, Dave had taken that.
I thought CPC was covering.
No, Dave took that out of the budget, so we put everything that was taken out back in, and then we'll start slicing and dicing again, taking stuff out. That was in the very beginning, that was the first thing he pulled out,
Okay.
was that, because he said that wasn't a big deal, so. And we're also gonna need to consider dealing with the fact, and this again goes to Dave, and this affects the schools. The middle high school is gonna need some septic upgrades. You're at septic capacity, so this is only a matter of time before we have to do something with that, and that could run into several $1 million to get that upgrade done. So that's something that should be on somebody's back burner, just to keep an eye on it, because that's where we're at. We get more kids, and middle high school is at septic capacity. They have more room for the kids, but they don't have enough septic capacity to take in more kids. And this is according to O&M. So it's something that we're gonna need to look at. This is why staying on these capital plans and these forecasts is so important. Because about the time we're ready to not be able to kick the can down the road anymore, and we have to start spending on the capital side, something humongous comes up that we don't have a choice but to fix.
Do you guys know if the tennis court, basketball court, I thought I saw a sign out in front of the tennis courts that said something about CPC funding a project.
I don't know that.
That's
Well,
probably
the tennis courts were originally funded through CPC. So there's a sign out there recognizing that CPC funded the building of those courts
Gotcha.
10 years ago, I'm guessing. I was actually looking at Pat, that may
It
have
was
been
the
able
first
to-
item out, it was the first item voted out of CPC.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, if it was the first item, so 15 years ago. Yeah, so that's what that sign is.
Oh, okay.
Been gone for almost 10 years.
20 years ago? It all runs together.
So at this stage of the game, you're comfortable with this capital summary, and if we're able to put, perhaps you could get with Beth and give us a priority list of what's crossed out, what your number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 thing, in its order of importance to put back in, should we find ourselves able to do that.
We could certainly do that, and yeah, absolutely, we would love to be able to fund everything if we could. But we can prioritize the items that we've crossed out and get that to Beth.
'Cause even
Though
with-
I do think that the school committee always votes our capital plan. So our next school committee meeting is next Monday night. Our intention is Monday night to bring a revised plan to the school committee, and we can come up with a prioritized list for them to approve on Monday evening. And then once that's approved, we can let Beth know that.
You have
Does
a
that,
meeting
if that
on
works
Thursday?
timeline-wise?
Yeah, we have a meeting this Thursday.
So-
Give us anything by then.
I feel like I have a good sense of the direction. I mean, you guys, we could just do real quick now. I'd say probably the middle high school parking lot would be up there. And then probably the minivan and then the bus.
So well, obviously, we've been thinking about this because we had some information that there would be more money available. So
Yeah.
we've begun to do that prioritization. I do think, and I don't know what the timeline is in terms of the town meeting warrant, and you can instruct me. I mean, historically, we've always had the school committee vote this, so I think it would be premature for us to
Makes sense.
not have the school committee vote and say, okay, here's the list. Obviously, if everything can come back, that's great. But we've begun to do some of that prioritization, and I don't know, Brian, we have a document we could share with people just to look at that a little bit tonight, or do you want to wait until?
Well, we have time on the capital side of the
Yeah.
budget. We're out of time this Friday on the budget side of the budget. It has to be
Yeah.
30 days before town meeting. But the
Right.
capital plan, apparently, and this is news to me because we always voted them together, but the capital plan, I guess we have a little more leeway with. But we can't, with the operating budget has to be final to be included in the warrant 30 days prior to town meeting, and that deadline is Friday.
We can certainly give you a prioritized list by Thursday, with just the caveat that that's,
It still has to.
it still has to, it has to be
Yeah, that's
approved by
fine.
the school committee, and then we'd be, we'd be bringing the similar list to the school committee on Monday. And they might make some revisions to it, they may not, and then we can certainly let you know after that meeting. If that works for everybody.
Yeah?
Thank you, guys.
Sorry, question. Looking at this new one schedule we got tonight, and I'm looking at your old schedule, and I'm seeing what you crossed off, and you're looking to put together a final list. but there's something I don't recall seeing before on the school side of this list, is the MHS HVAC renovation 150. That's nowhere on this list under facilities. Is that something above and beyond, something new, or?
That's not on our radar at for
That
FY
was
'24.
always a fiscal 25. I don't think that was supposed to have gotten moved. Because if we go back to the original, that was all three of those things, the athletic equipment, the sheds, the HVAC were all fiscal 25s.
Okay. And the other item I had was when we
So
voted.
so all this comes out of here.
Yeah, the 150, the 33, and the 90. On the original, we had those as fiscal 25.
So bottom line, I guess what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Are we giving them money so they can turn around and saying, well, I'm gonna prioritize so they can go to the school committee and get your vote before they come back to us and make their final recommendation? Is that the way it's gonna work?
Yeah, so in the meantime, while we develop how much money is available, will be available, make your priority. That won't change, the priority list. And then we'd be going, or the committee would be looking at, your number one priority, number two priority, and see what fits into what's available in the capital plan.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Yep, that works.
And when we talked about the opera funds that we sent over towards the
Yes.
Culinary Arts program, you talked about pulling money from prior ATM articles, $330,000.
So,
Could you mark those on this
yeah,
list that
so
we
actually,
have?
we're prepared this evening if it's okay with you. So we have our outstanding capital articles, and we'll give you recommendations on what.
Great.
We have we have it spelled out specific on each article of which ones we want to keep and which ones we're gonna, can be swept. And which ones are going to the culinary project, and so Ron will go through that. Yeah, it is kind of self-explanatory. And actually, in the notes, it tells you where we stand on those articles and which ones we're recommending that you can sweep and which ones we'd like to hold on to. And, if you want us to go through line by line, we can, or you can just ask questions on, because I think it's, like I said, feel like it's pretty self-explanatory.
Oh, I see what you're doing. So let me ask you a question, if I may, Madam Chair.
Yes.
This seems to be that we're approaching putting like $1 million into this culinary program. Are we trying to compete with what's the purpose of the culinary program at Carver Middle High School?
To service our students. So we have over 100 students who are taking culinary courses at the school. It is a vital program. It's one of our Pathways programs. The goal here isn't to compete, it's to offer the services that our students want. So students may have an interest in culinary, and they may have an interest in learning cooking skills and all the things that go along with culinary, but may not want to go to a Chapter 74 culinary program and have a full comprehensive high school experience. So it's a strong program. It's a program that's been very successful over the last really 15 years, really 10 years, and has a lot of student involvement and engagement. And we still send students who go off to Old Colony and go to their vocational program. So really, from my perspective, is we've been really trying to expand our offerings at the middle high school with a focus on students being college and career ready. And so some students are going to go off to a 4-year school, some students are not. And we felt that some of our programming was limited. We were a very academic high school. So we've taken in the last 3 years, we've designed these concept of these pathways programs, a manufacturing engineering technology pathway, a culinary pathway, an environmental science pathway. And really it's giving students, a lot of those programs, students will come out with some sort of a certification, depending on the individual
That
Oh,
was
program.
my next question.
Yeah, and so in culinary, they're using ProStart is the curriculum that they're using. They'll come out with ProStart certification, what's called a Safe Serve certification. And really, we wanted to build a more comprehensive high school that was supporting both our students who want to go off and attempt to attend Ivy League schools, and our students who may be looking for a career right out of high school.
But that certification is not going to get them entry into Johnson and Wales for a culinary program. It's
Oh,
not a.
certainly will. We'll definitely have students who apply to Johnson and Wales and are accepted, and they could certainly do that. So ultimately, in my mind, I don't view it as competition. And if we want to go back a few years, it was my first year as superintendent in 2016, maybe it was 2017, maybe my second year as superintendent. Don't quote me on the year, whether it was first year or second year, it doesn't really matter. It's irrelevant for the story. Myself and the building principal at the time, and Director of Curriculum and Technology and Instruction, Meredith Erickson, we went to DESE and said, we're looking to expand our programming. We want to offer students more. And quite honestly, at that time, we were considering doing a Chapter 74 culinary program. And when we went to DESE, they said, you should not go in that direction. We don't recommend that. At the time, they said, where the money is going to be and what DESE is going to look to support is this concept of college and career ready and this concept of innovation pathways. We want school districts to identify working with the area workforce boards. Like we've actually worked with Mass Hire, which is the area workforce board for the Southeast region, and they've identified the priorities for where jobs are going to be needed in this region of Massachusetts. And the top 3 areas were actually environmental agriculture, manufacturing, engineering, technology, and culinary, or culinary restaurant area. And so we said, okay, we're gonna pursue those pathways. And that has been true. There's been actually a lot of state funding in support of the innovation pathways. We received several innovation pathways grants. And if you take a walk through the middle high school and see what's changed in that building in the last 2 years, and we started the implementation of the pathways. Sorry, you got me off on a huge tangent. And in the year of the COVID year, and that was supposed to be our launch year. So the year we were home, when we started the school remotely, and then we went to the hybrid model in 2020. So in the fall of 2020 was supposed to be our launch of Pathways. And we actually held for a second and thought and said, do we want to do this? Do we want to try to launch this program while we're at home, while we're eventually going to be hybrid and then come back into school? And we said, you know what, we're moving forward, we're going to do it. And that was the best decision we ever made because we just kept moving forward as a district in terms of our offerings. So the different types of electives, the opportunities for students in that school has increased tremendously in the last 2 or 3 years. And then from the support of the community, through capital outlay, several years in a row, we've gotten what we call, curriculum, modernization of curriculum. I think you'll see it listed there as, which was really just money to support our pathways programs and building those out. And then through our state grants for the innovation pathways, and we had 2 of our pathways have been designated by the state as innovation pathways. One of them is manufacturing, engineering, technology. The other one is environmental science. We're building a greenhouse at the middle high school currently, which will be done in a couple months. And if you go into our makerspace or our engineering lab, what those kids are working with, the tools they're working with, and I in no way do I claim to be an expert in any of these devices, but we have teachers who are, and kids are working with industry-rated standard equipment that is really training them with real skills. So last year we did an MET showcase. We actually had 100 manufacturers. We were amazed. We had 100 manufacturers from Southeastern Massachusetts, 100 people, maybe not 100 firms, but 100 people came in to see what our kids were doing. And we had students who were actually being offered jobs at the time and saying, we just bought one of those machines and I'm looking for someone to run it. And the kid was running the machine and said, do you want to come work for us? So this isn't about competition. It's about giving the students of Carver the most comprehensive and best educational experience they can have. And I want to thank the community for the support it's given the school, because it really has been tremendous. And there are some great spaces in that building that have been supported, as I said, through capital outlay and through the state funding. We have a new video TV production studio in the building. We just upgraded all the auditorium lighting to support our Visual Pathways program. We just updated stage lighting. We replaced all the interior lighting through this green lighting initiative. So that was done, they're all changed over to LEDs a year ago. And if you go through space in that building, we've been putting through the modernization pieces also in terms of just some new furniture, upgrading materials in the building. It's impressive the things that have happened there in the last couple of years. So I guess I'll just leave it there and say it's not about competition. It's about just providing the best we can for the students of Carver.
Makerspace is a huge thing now. It's all over everything. It's given everybody that has a small tool in their basement the opportunity to build stuff. From 3D printing to, I have an X-Carve, a few other people in town. Craig just bought one. So we all have our own little pet projects and stuff like that we do. So yeah, makerspace is a big deal, and the kids should learn this stuff because this is the future of this industry, especially 3D printing. Everything starts out as a model someplace.
Yep.
It's kind of neat when you can make it yourself, you know.
And it's just pretty impressive what our kids are producing and what they're making using our 3D printers, using our Tormac machines, we have a new lathe. So those, it's
Have to
impressive. what
stop
we're
in
doing.
Uh,
and check all that out.
Yeah,
Should-
if I'll interject and brag a little bit on our school. They, our science teacher was looking for new DNA modeling to show how the different, Scott could probably explain it better, but the different things connect, and they were extremely expensive. So they went down to the 3D printing lab into the class down there and said,
The kids printing.
and the kids made one that was better than
The
what
kids
you could buy.
designed it.
Yeah.
And what they designed was actually better than what they could purchase.
Yeah.
And I think the purchase cost was around $50, and they were able to design it and build it for around $15. So our kids, and so they have all, the old style DNA molecule and showing it and being able to manipulate it. But like I said, the science department was looking to purchase them. And so we're always looking for projects. So if there's something that someone in the community is looking to do who might be listening out there, reach out to the middle high school principal, reach out to our technology engineering teacher, Dave Aruda, and he'd be more than willing to try to work with you to build it.
It's cool.
Did you have a question?
Pat?
Just kind of a thought for you guys, and it goes back a while for the culinary. When I was at the school, I was very involved with them, and even after a few years after I retired, I was still involved with them, their competitions and so forth. My concern would be, my thought would be, and see where you guys weigh in on this. You're talking, getting close to $1 million. And I know that, Scott, you're supportive of it, and you've got the instructor that is probably one of the best around, and you've got the feedback from that culinary is one of the highest sought after jobs out there. So, but 5 or 10 years from now, when there's a different superintendent there and a different instructor and maybe a different survey, then what happens? If you don't have that support within the school.
I'd just start by just talking about the survey. So the Mass Hire survey is not a one-year
No, but I mean,
survey. It's a
then
multi-year
you get a different
projection.
You get a different superintendent in there. You're gonna say, well, maybe they don't like the culinary program. Or if you've got a different instructor that doesn't bring to the table what Dan does.
I guess the only other thing I would say is just
I
is
think
just
the
that
success of the program is going to speak for itself.
Okay.
Tony, exactly
So-
that.
You have, great instructor who cares about the kids, and my kids still talk about him. Not only does he teach you how to cook, he teaches you how to make your resume and apply for a job too. So he gets a little bit of life skills too. But like any take private school, what do they do when their kids succeed? They post it everywhere, right?
Mhm.
Your son goes to all-state band. It's in the book. This is the high school he came from. So any competition the culinary does, when you see Carver High School, it's a big deal. And I think that's what's going to keep the programs alive and going is the success of the program.
I mean,
But I understand where Pat's coming from too. I think his question he put it very nicely. I think I would ask the question, I think he's looking at our investment. So, and he's mentioned this before, so let's just throw some quick numbers out there. We spend $1 million on a culinary program, or the federal government does, and we put the system in, and then you retire in 2 years, and the superintendent coming in behind you, while they like the program, they don't put as much emphasis on the program and passion into it that perhaps you do. And then the teacher retires out and we get a new teacher in who doesn't put as much passion into it, and then the kids, I guess it hinges on future success. So we're looking at return on investment. I think that's where Pat was coming
Yeah,
from.
and I was going to, I still feel your return on investment here will be strong. The teacher isn't 2 years from retiring. Yeah, I don't know exactly when the teacher's going to retire, but the teacher's not 2 years
Okay.
from retiring. And I think he's committed to be here in Carver. And, I hired him when I was the principal at the high school. I've known him for a long time, and I feel like when the community already has agreed to invest in this program, that he'll return with his own passion the investment that the community's made in the program. So there's going to be a long-term commitment from
Then it becomes an
teacher.
annual reinvestment, because it's obviously gonna have overhead year after year after year, so. it
Yeah, but
becomes- then we're into
that overhead
upgrading equipment and so
that
on and
overhead
so on.
exists in some ways too now, because we're running the program now in terms of and the program's competing. And I just think that once a school system develops an area of strength, an area of passion, that stays for a long time. It's hard to see that break down and diminish. And it's interesting. A very philosophical discussion this evening is that some schools are known for their great high school band, and that stays that way for 20 or 30 years because it becomes that's the thing they're known for. And other schools maybe they'll have a smaller high school band because for whatever reason that didn't get built out. And I think that I would be really shocked if when I retire, whatever that is, or whenever I leave Carver, which I have no intention of leaving Carver, but whenever that happens, that I feel like the next person would come in and say, you got a great space here. And we're gonna and the program's been really great and successful for many years. So wouldn't make sense for them to not support that and not push for that program to continue. I was expecting more the question of when we build a new high school. I always kind of throw that in there when I can. What's going to happen when we build the new high
luck.
school?
Good luck.
But I know that's I still know that's realistically at least 15 years away. We did a bond on that school for 20 years, and we're 5 years into that, I believe. And we did the accelerated repair project on the middle high school at the same time, where we did the roof and the doors and the boilers and the windows. And we made a commitment at that point to the MSBA that we'd hold off to look to build a new school for 20 years, because that's part of that deal. And that if for some reason the town was to move forward sooner than that, the money that we spent on the accelerated repair project, which was a little over $5 million, that would not be refundable by MSBA. Like that's the deal when you enter into that project at that time. But my answer to that question is, even if we do look to build a new school in 15 years, but that's a generation of kids. So I think some people have heard me say that before, but that means the kids who are 4 now, or 3 or 4 years old now, are gonna graduate from that school, and I think that the investment in this culinary program is going to be great for them.
My only other thought, if I may, would be that I would hope that when the time does come that Scott, is ready to retire and the school committee is charged with hiring a new superintendent, that we would be bringing somebody in that wants to continue the established pathways and directions that the school's already headed. And I think I'm almost certain that would be on the search committee's priority list, to find somebody that's willing to continue what we have started here, because our pathway programs really are excellent.
I never not allow someone in the audience. Donna, do you want to say something? You had your hand up.
Yeah, I'm the first girl to graduate from Old Colony Boat from Carver. And I graduated from culinary arts, and I graduated from Johnson Wales University. So don't let that get in the way of
Did you
any
pay her?
decision. You can graduate from university if you go to Old Colony Boat Culinary Arts. And I still work in the field. And I actually have been involved in the Council on Aging with their meals program as well. So.
How much did he pay you to be here tonight?
No, we're not trying to compete with OC though, that's the thing.
No, and my heart, obviously, I've been involved with Old Colony Boat with their board and all that. My heart is with the culinary program at Old Colony Vogue. And this has been so hard for me to accept, and to sit here and listening to Scott talk about the wonderful program they offer. It's, I can't keep my mouth shut. You can go so many places with culinary arts.
So you got an
The
endorsement.
health
Yeah.
field, the restaurant field, you know, whatever.
All right. I don't disagree with it. I mean, you know, I just didn't want to see us spend a whole bunch of money and then have an ongoing, and then you got to think back to, we go back 15 years or so when budgets got really tight and schools were cutting sports, they were cutting band, they were cutting, you know, what they considered to be unnecessary. The only fear I'd have is that they would cut that also because it's not, you know, the 3 Rs. And if money got really tight, but I don't foresee that coming, you know, anytime in the near future, so.
Yeah, I had time to look at your schedule. And if you could, when I look at two of these items here, they look like they were voted in fiscal '21, which is, when I see replace HVAC units in the admin building, I'm thinking that's something that is needed, so it's been 3 years now, we haven't done it. Question as to kind of why. And then the $100,000 for the new sports field irrigation, again, that's 3 years ago. If you're not asking for it in the 24, now you're going to put in fiscal 25, and it says back burner project, so why are they back burners, I guess is my question.
I'll get started on that. So yeah, they are back burner. We try to, the goal of this document was to give you just some transparency about what's been spent, where it's been spent, what hasn't, and why. And you see some of these that are like queued up. Some of the projects are 2/3 of the way done. Those are the two that aren't done yet. And frankly, that's purely a function of COVID. We had to prioritize projects. Some of the other projects became the priority project. And so that's why I noted those as backburnered. We had some conversation with operations in particular about the irrigation project though. And so because that was a few years back pre-COVID, we recognized two things. One, your time materials is going to have increased just because of inflation, whether we like that or not. So it'd be our expectation, our proposal, that we spend this summer taking a look at some new quotes on that. And ultimately, if we still feel like we can do the project within that budget, I think we should go forward with doing that. It's an investment in your fields. However, if the time materials on a project like that in particular is well over that amount, then we propose sweeping that back to the town because we don't want to go back and ask for more money on a project that was approved 3 or 4 years ago. The same would be true with the central office, HVAC. Again, it was a project that is important, but we tried to prioritize all projects that are directly related to students. That building happens to be our offices, and while we want to make sure that that facility is functioning up to speed, works well too, we don't provide a lot of service for students in that particular building. So that's why those two are backburnered, and that's our position on them, is to take a look and see if ultimately we can provide that service with that dollar amount. If we can, let's do it. If we can't, let's sweep it.
I think you'll have a hard time doing the HVAC for that. We started out, the library was projected to cost $1 million, and we ended up at 1.8, almost 1.9. So, I don't see how you're gonna bail out a $45,000 expense from 2 years ago and have it still be within that budget.
And the only other piece I'd like to mention about the irrigation is that's actually a completion of, if you remember, we put in a new well over there. We put in an irrigation well. And we were actually on the consent order from DEP because our irrigation well was tied into our water that was going into the building. And obviously that was not appropriate. But that's the way the building was designed in 1987. So we actually had to separate the irrigation well from the well that was servicing the building. And we actually dug a new well. So there was a new well put there specifically for irrigation. So now at the middle high school, there's an irrigation well. Obviously, Dave can speak to this a lot more with a lot more expertise than I can. And then there's a well that services the building.
And there's new filtration systems.
Yeah, and then we had to put a new filtration
yeah.
system inside the building for
Right.
the water service in the building.
Right.
Because Carver's water has too much magnesium, right? Is that it? And obviously other things as well. So we have an irrigation well, but we don't have the irrigation system running to the fields. So the goal of this project would actually, it's kind of a final completion. It's the final step in that larger process of separating the two wells that we're servicing and doing the irrigation. This would actually provide irrigation for the practice football field right out behind the middle high school, and then the baseball fields. So that the big swath of the two baseball fields would do the two outfields. But we're willing to take a look at it and see if it's not a feasible thing to do. But that's why it stayed there. And in terms of being back burner, I would also say that, and operation maintenance in this community has had a lot of things put on their plates in the last 5 years in terms of from the police station, and I think on some level it was just a bandwidth issue. Thank you.
That's adding.
Yeah. So of all these that you have, do you know about how much they total that you can turn back? I see one for 25,000, and then some really small ones.
You're looking at the sweeps?
Yeah. So is it like 26,
Sue?
27,000?
26,820 according to Sue, or according to Bob,
Or it could be another 145 on top of that.
could be another 145 on top of that. But that wouldn't be, I don't think we'd be ready to do that prior to this year's town meeting.
No, you wouldn't want to do that. Of course not. Okay.
Thank you, guys. I'm just wondering, because we're trying to
Yeah.
balance and
Yep.
understand how much of this is going to get turned back.
Don't never count your chickens. Anybody else?
Any
All right.
other questions? Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you very much.
To stay in contact with Beth, Ron, if you would, so she'll meet, the Capitol's meeting on Thursday. We're meeting with the select board tomorrow night, but they're meeting with their next meeting's on Thursday, and then your school committee meeting will be on Monday, so we can try to get a handle. I'd like very much to see a restoration to some of the Capitol stuff
Yeah.
on your plan. I never thought I'd see the day that I'd say that. Wonders ever cease. Our next guest of the evening, the Planning Department, Mr. Bott. Good evening, Mr. Shea. Everybody get the, did you get one, Pat? I'm sorry. Did you get one of these? Can you send that down? Anybody not have this sheet, in case they want to ask some questions?
I'll take one. I'll take two. Is there another one?
Chris? I'll give this to you after, Ashley, if you don't mind. So this is all I've got. Thank you, Mr. Bott, for giving us this little handout. So after messing around with the budget back and forth, I think we restored planning. There's no changes to planning's budget, am I correct, sir? Other than this handout we just got, which I think, well, I'll let you explain what it is.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Tom Bottom, the town planner here in Carver, Mass. And listening to the staff is a excellent thing I've learned here because I have very good staff. And one of the suggestions they had, because we've sort of created a permitting department and pulled it apart, and there's a few fragments out there. So their recommendation was to take some of these items from postage, other purchase services, office supplies, and operating, other purchase services and operating supplies, and just putting them into one pot. Because particularly with postage is a very good example. When we're in the postage machine, it's postage. It may be from a mailing for building, maybe from planning, but that was their suggestion. So they're the people who manage this and maintain it on behalf of the department. So I'm for that. There's no changes in the dollar amounts. The only change in the dollar amount on the planning side of things from other purchase services, which went down by $5,700, was just taking those amounts and putting them into other accounts within planning. Advertising increased $32,500. That was taken out of that account. Moved $2,000 over for minute takers and $500 over for phone services. So we're trying to take those dollars and put them in identifiable pots of money where they ought to be. This larger article item of other purchase services has been
used for lots of different things, from paying for me when I was the interim planner, to paying for printer things, for paying for advertisements, for paying for minute takers. So doing two things: one, trying to put those items in a proper spot, and secondly, just trying to take those items that are sort of still being better refined and just putting them in one spot rather than having, 4 or 5 different budget line items for those. But other than that, the budget remains the same. The increases we talked about Saturday at the fire station was an increase in salary for the planner when they hired me, an increase in advertisements as we look forward to updating the open space plan and the housing production plan, and some additions for training, to try to bring planning board and the zoning board of appeals some additional technical training on the things that they do.
Can I just ask it?
Sure.
So I just want to make sure I understand, we're doing these reclasses, so they're going from planning to which department?
Well, I think the discussion was about creating a petition, a permitting department account for those. There may have been one previously, but creating that permitting department account for office supplies, operating supplies, postage, and other purchase services. So I know what accounts they come from. I've identified those. But I think the idea was to create that additional account to put them into.
So you want like another department set up for permitting?
Okay.
Are you gonna subcategorize these so that we still have some kind of an idea, or are we gonna try to put everything into the, which I'm not opposed to, but I put everything into one pot?
So I'm thinking if you look at the first page of the budget where the selectmen have, like utilities taken out, and they moved it from all of the departments, the telephone, the gas, the electric. So that's what he's trying to do, so we can just do a subcategory of permitting department, and all those line items that are in 4 different places can go into one place and out of their actual budgets.
So it'll be out of the permitting department budget, but it'll be within the overall department
Correct.
budget. I got you.
All right, so you moving it from, so you want to create like a new line item called permitting, and put all the costs in there?
She's gonna make a new line item that says supplies,
Yeah,
or office supplies.
permitting supplies.
She's gonna do the same thing that she did here. She's gonna, see how we got utilities? And then all the utilities are in it, but it's still part of the selectmen's budget. So they're gonna do the same thing here, only call it, operating supplies or common costs or whatever you want, so that we don't have to worry about who's buying the pens.
And then you'll still be able to, if you ever need to break out how much you spent in postage, you'd still be able to do that?
I don't think it would matter.
Yeah, there'll be a line item for postage.
Yeah, they're not consolidating
We're not
into,
taking all of those items and putting them in one account number. There's still gonna be a postage and an
yeah,
advertising.
because you want to be able to see those.
Yeah,
But they'll be-
5420, 5590, 5342, and 5380 would remain. They would just have a different suffix in front of them.
Okay.
I think it makes the most amount of sense.
It was the staff's idea, so.
It makes it easy to follow.
I don't want to get the impression that I come up here to make a lot of sense to people, but it was the staff's idea. And like I said, the people who are taking good care of us, we try to listen to them. They're managing this, and so they've had a lot of conversations about it. So I'm agnostic about it, but if you guys are good with it, staff is good with it, I'm good.
Anybody else?
I would just say, it makes sense to me for them not to try to track, like, is this postage for the Board of Health versus the
Right.
planning board? Like, postage is postage.
But the way it was first presented, it sounded like they were trying to consolidate into one account.
Right.
No,
Which
Yeah, so
they're
they're still
that's
tracking
why I
postage,
said
but
they're
they're
gonna
just not
track it.
tracking it down to
Yeah.
a very specific
Right.
department.
But we don't really charge it back to the Board of Health. I mean, it doesn't matter who runs what through the postage meter. We're not, the Board of Health, the person getting the piece of mail isn't paying us for the stamp. So, it doesn't make a difference as to what department actually used the postage. But you can break it down so we have an idea, but it doesn't, for our purposes, it doesn't matter whether you spent $250 on the Board of Health mailings and $500 on planning board mailings. As long as there was $750 there to spend, then we're good, So you're comfortable, your budget is gonna remain at this 218,891? Is it 6? I didn't bring my glasses.
Yeah.
Little print. 216,891, I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm comfortable.
That is correct. Anybody else? I'll hear a motion.
I'll make a motion to recommend to the select board the planning department's budget for $216,891.
Second?
Motion made and seconded to recommend planning board's budget at $216,891 to the select board for inclusion in the warrant. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried, 7-0. Okay, that's good. You wanted to discuss
And if I may, so we've been having some emails about stipends for the planning board. This is one of the things that the planning board submitted as a warrant article in December after the budget had closed. So I've invited Chairman Shea to come tonight just to sort of touch base on the process and how this rolls out. So if we
Be
can.
more than happy. Floor is yours, sir.
Well, I hadn't really planned a speech. I'm more here for moral support for Mr. Bott. But what I've noticed is it's become burdensome that the stipend for the planning board, and I was approached by planning board members to ask for an increase because over the course of the years, it's become a bit of a burden to sit in that particular chair. There's a lot of expenses that go along with the planning board. We require vehicles, gas, insurance, computers, cell phones, and various other instruments just to do our job, including, as we discussed earlier, various training, exercise, and other aspects. What I did notice, I did get an email today that mentioned that in 2014 that the stipend for the planning board had been reduced to its current level of $800 per member, $1,000 for the chairman, and that was in 2014, so that was 9 years ago, and it hasn't really been reassessed since that point, as I'm sure we're all aware, with lockdowns and various other increases in prices and costs. It should be commensurate with the position and the amount of duties that are required of the planning board. We sit on various other committees, the CPC, the Solar Moratorium Study Committee, SERPED, to name a few, and we're looking to get not a vast increase. We're looking to raise the stipend for the average, for all the planning board members by $200. So we're requesting a stipend increase from $800 to $1,000, and for the chairman, $1,000 to $1,200. Now, we noticed 4 years ago there was a variety of increases in various other stipends, but over the past 9 years, most of the committees that either have a stipend have either been introduced a stipend or have increased stipend. For instance, I believe 4 years ago, the Conservation Commission stipend was increased. The Select Board stipend was increased. And since that point in time, with the lockdowns and the various other issues we've had to deal with in that regard, costs have risen, and the cost of sitting on a board or committee of this particular nature has risen quite a bit. And frankly, part of the reason of the stipend is not to create an undue burden or cost to the people sitting on these various boards and committees. And it's to help attract people to the position. There's a lot of positions in town, and we like to attract people that are willing to sit on the board, and to do that, we need to pay them, well, pay isn't the right word, but we need to cover the costs in regards to them sitting on the board. Thank you.
Okay. The issue that I personally have, and you're correct, we did raise Concom. It was at the request of Michael Malinowski, for those of you that were on the committee at the time, may remember. Michael asked us to look at the stipends, I believe in 2019 or 20. And in fact, I think it was 19, because Dave Robertson was still a member of the select board. And we looked at them all, and we felt that the select board, being the CEOs of the town, were underpaid. So at that point, the discussion went to raise the select board stipend to $3,000 for the chair, $2,000 for a select board member. I think it went from, was it $2,000, Ron? It was 2,000 and 1,500 or something like that, right? And we went to 3,000 and 2,000.
Sounds about right.
And then when it came to Concom, I made full disclosure that I'm a member of Concom, and I recused myself from the vote. And the reason we raised the Concom to the level of the planning board is for the exact same reasons that I believe that Connie just said now. Concom meets every 2 weeks, just like the planning board. Concom does site visits, just like the planning board. Concom does follow-up visits, just like the planning board. And we were getting 300 for the chair and 150 for a member, and it wasn't even going to pay for the gasoline in the car to go riding around and do all these site visits. Nobody wanted free lunch, but it didn't even cover our costs. So we looked at it, and we raised no other ones. The suggestion for town meeting that particular year in Schedule C of the warrant was to go up on Concom by that amount and could go up on the select board by that amount, and that was passed. Frankly, I don't disagree that the stipends are, I mean, this committee here, this is a $300 and $150. ZBA is 300 and 150. The earth removal is zero. They get, and they do site visits, and they don't, there's no stipend. John Carter was obviously on the governance committee. I asked for some history from John, and I'll turn it over to him in a second. But correct me if I'm wrong, it was the same reason. It was because we were not getting people on boards, and this is what the governance committee thought was the best way to go. And I'll let you follow up, John.
Yeah, one of the governance committee tackled many different items, but something was brought up, and I really can't say how long there had been changes until I think it was 2014. So, you know, we looked at it as a independent, not a political body, and we just looked at what the current stipends were, and compared them to other boards, and also went out against other towns to find out what other towns were paying. So we tried to rebalance the stipends at that particular point in time. We made a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. It was approved, and I believe it went into the finances for next year's budget. I guess from my take, having an independent body or subcommittee to review all stipends time to time would make sense.
And I agree with that. The only issue I have with this is the wording of the article, which the wording indicates that you want the same money the select board are getting, because it says commensurate with the select board. And it says that.
Yeah, and
It doesn't put a number in there, number one. Number two, and just give me a second, it completely circumvents the whole process, and this sets a horrific precedent. Now, we can't tell you not to do it, but if this gets done this way, and it circumvents the finance committee from trying to build it into the budget, now we're making money motions from town meeting floor. And what's to stop us next year from saying, putting it on the floor, that we should get $3,000 a person? And I mean, it's ridiculous, but the select board could do the same thing. The process is that it comes through the vetting process, not because we're better by any means, but we put together the budget, and the budget has to total. And we're scrambling like crazy, trying to find ways to make everything balance. And now we're hoping we're in pretty good shape here. And it's a couple $100, and it's $200 for the chair, and it's $200 for a member, and that's not going to break anybody. But the way we're going about doing it is the biggest problem that I have with it. And I think that John's right. I think that we should, as this committee should, if you guys can hold on a little bit, look at the stipends across the board. I'd like to see earth removal get a stipend. I'd like to see perhaps Concom, because I'll tell you right now, if planning goes up, then there are members of the Conservation Commission are going to say, well, we do the same stuff as they do. How come we didn't get the raise? So now we're getting selective in who's going to get a couple dollars more and who isn't, especially if it goes through a floor vote. And I really don't want to see that happen on the floor. So I need, give me some input on an alternative. I already know what the planning board would like us to do, but for us to go and stick 2, 4, 6, 8, and the alternate 1,000, it's $1,200 increase in that budget, which is not the 6,800 that I thought it was coming out to, the way it seems to be worded in the warrant. So, I mean, I'll entertain any motion if you guys want to do it. I don't have a problem with it. We're not here to hurt any other board or commission. I just don't like the way it's being done because I think it sets a terrible precedent going forward. It circumvents the FinCom. I mean, what are we here for?
I think if somebody's serving on a board and it's costing them money, expenses, then those should be covered. And I don't necessarily like the word stipend because it kind of shows that if it costs me $600, I'm getting $1,200. Why not just pay for your expenses? Now, it could be more than the $1,200 they're asking. You would know that. You're spending more.
Depends on how busy the year is. I mean, I get a
Yeah.
$300 stipend, and I've never turned a bill in for paper, ink, or anything.
Right.
So that $300 after they tax it, I'm in the hole every year, a couple $100 on FinCom. But that's my choice. I could come in here with receipts and I could get reimbursed. I choose not to. But that's the reason I recommended that they raise the Concom, because we were doing site visits and riding all over town. So, yeah, gasoline, and as far as getting reimbursed for the actual expense, what happens if, Connie's vehicle gets 28 miles to a gallon and my diesel dually gets 9? I'm gonna go, turn in a slip and it'd be twice the amount of money for fuel that his vehicle was? That doesn't work. Ron?
You said 9 years ago it got cut.
It got reduced
Yeah,
to
it
what
did
it
get
is
reduced.
currently in
And do
2014.
you know what it was prior to that?
It was
I do
2,000
not.
for the chair and it was 1,500 for the member.
Yeah. And it got reduced
And
to
it got cut.
more or less half of that.
You're right.
So you're not even looking to be restored to whole, you're just looking for...
We're just looking to cover the costs of sitting on the board. I chair the planning board. I've never sat on the finance committee. I'm familiar. I watch you guys all the time. But I'm not entirely certain of the process. I inquired of Mr. Bott, so we didn't want to step outside the process. Mr. Bott is very well experienced, an intelligent individual, and I'm following his lead on this. This is outside my pay grade in regards to this, so I listened to Mr. Bott, and Mr. Bott was hired as an expert, not only as the planning board, but for the entire planning department and the processes in regards to that. He's worked in several towns, and I'll stand by him in the fact that if he feels that we're approaching this in the normal, average, appropriate way, there we go. But we have no intention of stepping outside of FinCom. I understand the town is struggling for funds. We struggle every year. This year looks to be a particularly difficult year. And we don't want to add excess strain to that, so we're keeping our request just the bare minimum, just enough to absolutely cover the bare minimum of cost and not put an undue burden on people.
Can I ask a process question?
Sure.
If the planning board had, instead of going the article route, had simply said, we want to increase the the stipend for our elected officials by the same thing they're asking for, but within the context of the budget that they submitted, is that
It's not in their
acceptable?
budget. Well, it is in their budget, but it's on a different schedule. So what would have happened is the chairman or the planning board would have asked the chairman to say something to the planner would have gone to the town administrator. The town administrator would have done what Michael did. Hey, take a look at the stipends and see what you think.
But I'm saying, where would it appear in the budget?
It'll be in their line item. It says,
In their line. So
it's in their
guess that's what
salary.
I'm saying, is that at the start, rather than go the article route,
It's in their salaries.
Elected
That-
officials, yeah.
Mr. Bond could have
If I
just.
may?
Yeah, elected
Yeah.
officials.
So when we prepared the budget deadline is in November. And so when we were talking about articles for town meeting, that's when this came up about the stipend for the planning board members. If we'd had a conversation about it prior to the budget, then I would have certainly submitted in the budget, to increase the compensation for the elected officials. But the budget had been submitted, and then the idea came up with the deadline for the warrants, and that's why it went in that way. If we'd had this conversation in October, you know, it would have been in the budget as a proposed increase to elected officials.
And at the risk of being shot, and I'll put this to our finance director and town administrator, it just seems like a simpler solution would be to put this in the planning, but if we had the will to do it, could we find $1,200 and just insert it in the line item of the budget, right, and just not have to go the whole
So
article?
you're not gonna give it to Concom, you're not gonna give it to the other committees? If we're gonna give them a raise, then we have to look at the overall everything.
Well, but I
We can
think when
certainly
you,
entertain that.
I'm basing this on the fact that they were at almost twice what they're at now. And I think they make a legitimate case, and the other departments frankly didn't come before us and ask for this. So I just think that $200 is a modest request, doesn't even make them whole to what they were prior to the decrease. So I said at the risk of being shot.
Oh, no, I'm not. It doesn't matter to me. It's not my money. Well, it is my money. It's your money and everybody else's money, but.
So, I mean, I understand what you're talking about
We spent
relative to.
$1,200 on coffee, so I wouldn't get too worried about the 12. I'm sure we can find $1,200. If we
I
take it
mean,
out of
again,
Bob's salary.
Concom didn't come requesting it, nor did any of the other departments. And,
What is I'm sorry, what is
So-
Concom at again?
Concom's the same as the
Okay.
planning board. They're at the same $4,200.
Yeah, if I may, so-
For the chair and $800 for the member.
So the Board of Selectmen is 3,000, 2,000. There's three committees that are 1,000 and either 700 or 800. And those are the Board of Health,
Board of Health.
the Conservation,
Yeah.
and the Planning Board. They're all the same. And then everything else filters down from there. So could we find that? I mean, we'd have to move things around and pull from one area to fund that. It's not a big hit, but again, like Alan and whoever said that, you gotta look at others too, that do similar work, if that's what you wanna do.
I guess I'm influenced by the fact that they were cut in half.
Yeah, and
9 years
that's-
ago,
that's a-
whereas you can't say the other
Well, you were in
departments.
charge when that happened. This is your fault.
The other departments were not at that level.
Yeah.
So that you can argue that at some point in time, the town felt that that's what the planning board should be receiving as stipends. It was cut in half. They're looking to get $200 more toward what had been whole, whereas the other departments were never in that range to begin with. So that's what influences me.
The way this town was run years ago was probably a member of the planning board that also sat somewhere else that got it put through for this
I
night.
don't want to draw any conclusions
Yeah.
as to what.
I don't know why they cut it. There was no planning board discussion and the governance committee's recommendations to go forward.
Right, that was done before any governance.
Right,
2.0, my guess was it was during one of the tough years, and it was never reinstated.
Yeah, because
after
I was
the cut
surprised to
made.
see that big a number when I look back in the history. I didn't realize it was that big a number.
Do we still have this governance committee?
No, we had governance 2.0 and 2.0.
3 years in a row, I think we had.
They
One
went
or
away
something,
in
so that made
2015.
various recommendations towards, but, I mean, I would also endorse the idea that, as we embark on a new fiscal year, that probably sitting down and taking a look at stipends for everybody makes sense. But, I'm influenced by the fact that, these folks were making significantly more and looking just for a meager, what I think is a meager increase at this time. So I would support the idea of installing the $1,200 back in their budget.
If we do that, will you remove the article? Will you withdraw that article?
The planning board has a vote on all the articles for town meeting tomorrow, and it's on the warrant, on the agenda.
Okay. Well, but the select board's also meeting with us tomorrow night to discuss whether to put that article in the warrant or not. So that
I
will be
can,
part of our discussion.
I mean,
So-
I myself am more than willing to remove it, but I cannot speak for the planning board, and I would think that because I was approached by planning board members, they would want some assurances.
Well, we take a
So-
vote. I'll accept a motion. And
So
it
if
passes
that
tonight,
happens,
but if
I
this
can't-
happens, where's the
yeah.
$1,200 coming from?
Well, I can't speak for the select board, but if that happens and you want to support the $200 in the budget, then I'm sure the select board will not put that article on the warrant.
Yes, but they also, and in all fairness to the chairman, he's got to understand that the select board can also veto that increase. Don't forget, we are advisory. So we go to the select board and say, by the way, we gave the planning board X, they can sit back and say, yeah, we don't think so. And take it right back out again. So, you know, he's gonna, Connie will say, with the okay of the planning board, he'll withdraw the motion from the warrant, the article. If we give him the assurance that it's gonna happen, but we can't guarantee it's gonna happen, because the select board can veto it.
So the select board can also not approve to put the article on the warrant.
Absolutely, so that's
So-
that caveat. So,
So if the select board doesn't want to give them the money, they can simply not put the article on the warrant, so. I think they'd be highly influenced by a vote of, a recommendation from this committee to support the 12.
I think in all fairness, if we're gonna do that, and I'll throw a wrench into everything, again, in full disclosure, but you're talking, if we're gonna do for one, then we need to do for similar boards that do similar stuff.
See, I would respectfully disagree, because at one time, it was believed that the planning board should be receiving significantly higher stipends. And so and again, not to get into a debate as to whether Concom works harder than planning board or Board of
Oh, it's
Health
not
or
a
anything
debate about
else.
that, it's just simple that we want.
But so anyway, what I'm influenced by is where the planning board had been, what they got reduced to. They're looking to increase that. And if Concom wanted more money, then they could have also submitted a budget asking for more money, as could the Board of Health.
Make a motion.
I make a motion that we add $1,200 to the elected salaries for the planning board.
I need a second. Second?
I'll second.
For discussion. We have the $1,200.
Yeah, I can, yeah.
Any other discussion?
I'm just gonna state what I think. If you guys took all the money that cost you to be on the planning board individually, could be more than that, could be less. I just think that, like you said, we're opening up a can of worms maybe now with the other committees, and what's fair is fair. If it costs you more than that, you should be compensated more than that. I mean, we're all here volunteering, so we're not getting paid. This isn't our job, so we're not getting paid. But if you're dishing out your personal money to be on the planning board, maybe $1,200 isn't the right amount. Maybe it should be more. So without seeing the expenses in a year's time, I find it difficult to say that's the right decision to
Throw a
make.
number. Yeah, I know.
I mean, I support the extra 200, because I'm guessing it's probably more than that, but I think in going forward, if we're gonna start getting these requests, I think we need to set a precedent that says, let's look at the expenses of each individual and see, are we, maybe we're not in the right ballpark.
Well, then we can get talking about what's fair and not fair. We're down to the 11th and a half hour.
No, that's why I wouldn't
you
stall it
know,
right now.
And, no,
But I'm saying-
but now we're gonna vote to do this, and it doesn't give any of the other boards and committees a chance
And
to
they
do
had
anything
the
about it.
opportunity
They had
to
the
raise the same
opportunity, you're
question.
right, they did, but they didn't give it a thought because we didn't think it was in the budget.
And having served on other boards that receive stipends, this board gets a stipend. I looked at it as, I've never looked at it as cost-benefit analysis.
Well, I
in
never
terms of
did
whether
either.
I'm getting reimbursed for whatever my expenses are. It was just sort of the town.
This is community service.
Acknowledging with a stipend, the service that you give to the town.
Yeah, but
know,
you
I never-
you shouldn't have that service cost you $1,000
No,
a year either.
no, I
you know?
recognize
It's one thing
that.
to
I never-
give up a couple $100 to, meet during this stuff, and we really hammer on budget season and stuff, and it's voluntary, and it's appreciated. The planning board it's like and I'll go back to Concom, it's like the select board. It's twice a month, year round. Planning board's twice a month, year round. They, second and fourth Tuesday of the month. Select board first and third.
Oh, no, I get it, and there's so
Concom
many.
first and third
But there's so many
Wednesday.
other meetings that go beyond just the formal meetings that take place. I
Sure,
mean,
there's the
I'm sure
stipends.
which is, again, the stipend is just a nominal recognition for the work. It's not intended to reimburse I never looked at it as something in intention to reimburse you for your expenses. I mean, for Pete's sakes, for the hours that people put in with private meetings and visits and so forth, it works out to about probably 50 cents an hour that they end up getting paid. And look at the time you put in yourself on the finance committee. You're getting the $300 stipend as
Yeah,
chair?
I get the big money.
You
yeah,
get the
I
big money. Okay.
And then they tax it, and I'm in the retirement plan, though. I'm getting 28
Oh, I know.
cents
Yeah.
a month for the rest of my life if I live to be 75.
Anyway, I understand your point about fairness, but again, I'm heavily influenced by the fact that 9 years ago, they were cut from a very significant stipend in half, and now, 9 years later, they're looking to get $200 back towards what it was.
Well, I feel a lot better with the 200. It was, the way I read the article, it was commensurate, so I thought you were looking for 3,000 and 2,000. There was going to be an argument over that, but there's a motion on the floor. And Mr. Bott, you wanted to say something?
No, I was just going to make the analogy that, serving on a board, and I've served on boards in town I live in, is more of an exempt position than an hourly wage. You work more hours than it says on that description of, 35 hours, is that what it is? So you're on a board, you're not, you're sort of like a salaried employee, you're not getting paid for all the time you're putting in. You're doing it because you believe in your community, you believe in service. And easy for me to say because I'm getting paid to be here and he's not. I guess you're paid something. So in any
But
event,
he's
that's-
getting paid more money to be here tonight than we are, so that's okay.
Not till July 1.
Not till July 1, that's right. So, if this is the will of the board, then I'll certainly entertain the motion, and I'm sure we're gonna be able to find $1,200 someplace. Any further discussion?
I just wanted to say, I think you guys do deserve a raise, and it should probably go up, but I really think that maybe all of the stipends should be reviewed at the same time, just so it's fair, because that's what happened in 2019.
If it's all right, in case it wasn't clear, the duties of the planning board are extensive, and it regards sitting on a lot of other committees, including regional and state committees, long training, and a lot of travel. We're only asking for a small pittance of a raise, and that's because we understand that the town could be struggling this year particularly.
So, do you guys plan to come forward again next year for another raise?
I don't plan on coming forward, but again, if I'm asked by planning board members, if all of a sudden next year gas is $5 a gallon, that's something that's gonna have to be reconsidered. I am here at the behest of the planning board. They didn't give me a number either. This is the number that I pulled out, of $200 a piece.
Are they good with
because
that number?
I didn't ask them. They asked me to see if we could get enough money to cover some of the expenses that were coming out of their pocket. And having watched the finance committee meetings, I understand where the town is, and the town's always struggling, but this year's one of the worst years. I mean, 9 years ago, we took a big cut in our pay. We didn't come out 4 years ago, when the select board and conservation commission got pretty solid stipends then. We've kept our mouth shut and we've done our duty because that's what we agreed to do. But I'm not gonna be in this position long, and I want to make sure that when I leave, that it's not costing other people money, sit where I sat, because as chairman of the board, and I'm sure Alan can agree, there's a far more expensive commitment to the job.
There is that. Pat?
I think that what's coming out of here is there's a distinct inequity between the committees, the boards, what they do, how many times a week they meet, what do they do outside of the meeting, and so forth. And I think that it wouldn't take a lot for someone like maybe the town administrator to do a little study on that, and whether it's, comparing it to other towns, or at least in the confines of Carver to come up with some kind of an equity across the board. And there would be then different stipends to go along with different boards. And that would be, how many times a week do you meet? What's your outside obligations? Is it, do you have to go out and, on Saturdays and do field studies or something like that? And then I think that could solve a whole bunch of these things.
Sure.
Everybody would be on some level of equity.
I agree. I have no issue with that whatsoever. I fully agree with that. We drive from home to here. Do you know what I mean? And we drive from home to the high school for a town meeting. So, we don't have anywhere near the expenses that the planning board or the Concom or even the ZBA has. The ZBA does site visits on Saturdays. Concom and planning are out on site visits all the time. So yeah, you're right. They are much more involved in expense-wise than, for instance, we are.
We'll provide reimbursables,
Make
it fair, make it equitable.
Well, I think the town probably doesn't understand how much you spend out of your expenses, so to be transparent,
I think the town views it all as, you knew what it was when you ran for the job, you knew what it was when you applied to be appointed to the committee. This is our way of saying thank you, not our way of having you made whole, I guess, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we ever, asked to get a breakdown of expenses to justify what the stipend was. The stipend was intended to be an honorarium for serving for the town. There are differences. John, what was involved when Government 2.0 was raising stipends? It was basically more a comparison to what other towns were doing.
At first, it was internal comparison between boards, local boards here, like conservation, planning, and whatnot. But then there was a review of the surrounding towns. What did they offer, and to try to be competitive with it, try to get back in that line.
So, if I may, so I think what Pat said is a good idea. I think it falls in line with even our personnel wage. We have different classifications for every job. So it's similar when you're looking at committees. Committees do different things. Like you said, you have multiple tasks and meetings. Smaller committees don't. So you'll see different sets of requirements and duties that lead to a higher stipend based on what they do. So I think a study it's easy to do. And we can come up with something where across the board, every board would have something. So.
You're not talking about for this town meeting, though.
No, this is going forward. Yeah.
Well, I still support my motion at this point in
I
time.
take it back. Planning board, gray. Most towns do not pay, not in favor of an increase. Angry, would like to see it updated on duties and responsibilities. Motion by Grimes, contingent on request for additional information to recommend a decrease of the stipend for the planning board members to $800, chairman to receive $1,000. Angley was the second on that motion, and it was unanimous. That was the governance committee meetings from 9/9/2014 at 7:30 in the
So
morning.
that's
You guys
9
met
years ago
early.
when it got cut.
So planning board, that's when it got cut?
Yep.
Planning board members, because that's the same meeting that other boards and committees with fiduciary responsibility, blah, 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 This is when they put in a stipend for ZBA, RDA, FinCom, capital outlay in the North Carver Water District. And when they did all of that, it says Carter recused himself, motion by Grimes, to recommend a stipend of $150 for a member and $300 for chairman of the Finance Committee. And ZBA was in there, capital outlay, library trustees, and the Conservation Commission, 300 and 150. So they cut the planning board to 1,800, and they gave everybody else that were getting nothing a small stipend. So I have no issue with that. You can take this to the planning board. Well, any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion to raise by $200 the stipends for the planning board members, bringing the $800 to the member and, $1,000 for the member and $1,200 for the chair.
If I may, I think the motion was to increase the budget by $1,200.
Yeah, well, that would raise that by $200
Okay.
per member. It's already $4,200. I just want to clarify the $200 increase. So it would give $1,000 to the member and $1,200 to the chairman is how that would break out. Connie?
The alternate on the planning board doesn't receive a stipend. I would like to see him receive.
I assumed he did.
No stipend for the alternate, and if you're voting 1,200, of course, that 200.
I wasn't aware of that.
Will be going to him, and at some point, that would be something that I would like to see readdressed, because he does most of the duties of the planning board. He still shows up on all the site
Well, yeah.
visits and sits through everything.
I wasn't aware of that the alternate received nothing.
If I may,
Yes, sir.
the line item is for elected officials and the alternate is appointed.
There is that.
Interesting. So you want
Joint
to,
appointment by the planning board.
so if we change that now, we're going to be increasing that line item by an additional $1,000.
No, we would like to see him get something, but we weren't, again, looking to bring him up commensurate with.
All right,
with the
throw a
planning
number
board.
in.
Well, you guys were talking about 1,200. I think $200 for the altar. I'd like to see him get more, but again, we're not here to put your backs against the wall. We're willing to work with you and get.
Well,
for our
we'd
people.
have to bring him into a line item, Sue, because that says elected, so that's correct. So let's deal with one motion at a time then. Let's deal with the motion on the elected officials being raised by $1,200 from the $4,200. That would bring them to $5,600, right? No, I'm sorry, $5,400, right?
54.
That motion is on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No. Opposed?
Opposed? Aye. So it passes with, it'll get recommended to the select board. I'll take a motion to add a nominal stipend for the alternate, which I was never aware that he didn't get. And I think that's only fair simply because he makes the site visits too. He spends money on gas. A couple $100, they're gonna tax it. I mean, he's gonna get $89.75.
I'll make the motion.
Motion made and seconded to offer the alternate $200 stipend. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I
It's,
just think it has to, all of the committees need to.
I agree, but this is where it's gotta start, and it's the last minute, and I do not, I'm trying to work with the planning board. I don't wanna see this go to a motion on the floor. If the select board votes to put it on the warrant, then it sets a horrific precedent for next town meeting, where you begin the process of, what else can we not bother going to FinCom with and just go direct to the town?
FinCom and Select Board. They're bypassing the Select Board as well.
Yeah, and then there's still
Except
a
the Select Board does
possibility.
have the option of not putting the
Yeah,
article.
they do. So, will you create that line item, Sue, and so it's 200 for the alternate? And it's 1,200 for the planning board.
Was that 5-2?
I'm sorry?
Was it 5-2 or 6-1?
It was.
For the
on-
second vote?
Yeah.
Second vote
6-1,
was
I think.
6-1.
Thank you.
First vote was 5-2. So, there's your answer. Sir,
So just to burnish my nerd creds, 2 motions ago, we made a motion to approve the planning board's budget as submitted. Does anyone need to readdress that?
Yes, we're gonna have to adjust that now, so. You got a number? Of
Yeah.
course you don't.
218, 290.
See, I was right, the 218, when I couldn't read it the first time. All right, so I'm gonna need a motion. I'm gonna need to withdraw the motion. Well, I think it's not. We can make a new motion to adjust the planning board budget to reflect the recent increase to 218, 291.
Second?
No,
No, I
no,
can't
it's
make the
actually
motion.
1,400.
No, Beth made the motion.
Oh,
Hold on a second,
$1,400.
not
right?
1,200.
That's what I did, plus 216,891.
So it'd be 220.
I have 218, 291.
you
But
questioned
it was
Beth's
216,
calculations?
right?
Very good. I could be wrong, I'm doing it on my
So it's
phone.
You're kidding.
216,
I'm
891.
watching you and it looks like you're plugging it in actually.
It's 218.
So I have 216, 891, and we added 1,400
Yes.
to it. So that'd be 220. Oh,
No.
no, I'm sorry.
216 and
216.
1,400, how do we get to 220?
No, wait a minute, 216, 891.
We better start recalculating this whole
Go
budget.
ahead.
Okay, hold on.
You get the calculator.
The next quote, of course, would be 220, 221, whatever. it may be.
218, what?
But that's
291?
another show.
Sue can't add either, we're in trouble over here.
218, 291.
That's what I got.
Is that your motion, Beth?
Yes.
Second.
Final offer?
Mo- Motion made and seconded to adjust the planning board budget to reflect the recent vote on the stipends for, to a total of $218,291. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Your aye? Unanimous. 7-0. So you can report that, if you'd be so kind, at tomorrow night's, or whenever you're taking up that article. But I will tell you, we will tell the select board tomorrow night in our report what we did tonight, and we will recommend they do not include that item on the warrant, because we've done this. And then I do think that we should look at all the stipends if we're gonna look at stipends, but I don't disagree with your theory. I thought your initial request was the same as the select board, which is what got me a little defensive. So,
Thank you much.
other than that, we're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is emergency management. It's, I'm sorry, library. So we're just gonna simply take the vote on the library budget. Marie, you're welcome to speak on it if you want as a trustee. But I don't,
Recommend the
this is the budget is the same as it was at the joint meeting.
Alan, before we move on to this, I'm thinking maybe, if anyone wants, we could adjourn capital.
Yeah, there's nothing left. So if you want to adjourn and stay, or you want to, that's fine.
But could I put in a support for the library budget as a trustee,
Sure.
as presented, just to,
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be an issue tonight, because we don't really have anything, there were no changes to the library budget. It all stayed the same. Pretty much the rest of what we have tonight, with the exception of maybe beating up on the select board and the finance department, because they're here and it's fun to do. Library and emergency management's level funded. It's the same as it was at the joint meeting. We just simply need to take a vote to recommend it, so.
You sure? Okay. All right, we'll wait.
It's up to you. You can adjourn if you want. They're welcome to stay, or they can stay and partake. I'm easy.
Yeah,
It's only gonna be a little bit, then we got the selectmen. That's gonna be quick, and the finance department, pretty much everything that's left, it should be pretty quick. I'm not doing minutes tonight, I made that statement the other day. It says if available, and I'm not doing them, so we'll do those at the meeting following the joint meeting tomorrow night. We'll do all the minutes of the meetings as well as the joint meeting, and then have it all caught up when we do the next FinCom meeting. So, on the library, everybody take a peek, and I'll take a motion when you get around to it. I assume there's no changes, Sue?
Any changes in the library? No. No.
So it's the same presentation we saw at the joint meeting.
Same presentation we saw that Saturday.
I'll make a motion to recommend to the select board the library budget for $447,983.
Second?
Motion to recommend the library budget of $447,983 to the select board for inclusion in the warrant. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. That's good. Emergency management, there's another one that's pretty simple. He's got a very small budget. I will talk for one quick moment about some FEMA money. There is money in the FEMA account. Did we move that money out? Or is that still sitting there?
It's still there.
So the original amount was still in there, and then we put the 120 plus, we put the 130,000 into that account to sit also?
I'm sorry, I just missed that.
We had $154,000 in the FEMA account, yes.
Yes, so that's.
Then we got reimbursed for the snowstorm. That money also went in there, but it's untouchable, it's because it has to be approved for free cash next year, right?
No, the one that we just received went into the general fund because that's where the expenses were incurred.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So it didn't go in the FEMA account?
No,
So there's still 154-ish in the FEMA account?
correct.
But we took the money from the snowstorm as a reimbursement of
Correct.
expenses. I got you. Okay. And that's not in the emergency management budget?
No.
That's been spread out all over
It's actually,
O&M?
no, so it came, yeah, it was spread all over, O&M, fire, emergency management.
Police, EMS,
yes.
everybody got a little piece of the action, I think, right?
We just put it in as a revenue source, so it's gonna, to get closed out to free cash next year.
Okay. All right, so the budget stays the same for emergency management, at 67,110.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes,
When you put that into the revenue source, that doesn't count in the levy, right?
Not for FY '24, it's in FY '23's revenues.
Okay,
it's a reimbursement for the storm.
okay. But it shouldn't be offset with it by an expense, it should go to revenue?
Yes.
Yeah, it would, because we already spent all that money. And this was,
Well, I'm just thinking you put like a credit expense. So it's not as a revenue?
I don't think you showed it as revenue, right? You showed it as a reimbursement.
Because the storm was from the prior year, correct?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it was spent in the prior.
Was that,
Okay.
it was that 24-hour storm, the one
Okay.
that continued to give the days. And then I saw what Tom went through, Shelby,
Oh, yes.
Tom Bott and Kerry Boss worked, you talk about hours and hours and hours of submitting paperwork and forms and more paperwork and forms. And then this one went on vacation, so now we need more paperwork. And then this one got transferred to a different office, so now you couldn't get a hold of that person anymore, you start over with this person. I don't understand how the government gets anything done, but it took months to get this reimbursement. So I'll take a motion for $67,110 for the emergency management budget.
I'll make a motion to recommend to the select board the emergency management budget for $67,110.
Second?
Motion made and seconded to recommend to the select board for inclusion in the warrant of the emergency management department. Can you change that word from director to department?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Of $67,110. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. Somehow I put the library in here twice. in a row.
Reconsider.
Yeah, reconsider the library. Select Board. I had a couple of questions from some people. We see if you look down on the third line, you'll see town administrator. Below that, you'll see administrative salaries. That particular line item is Elaine Weston. That's the assistant town administrator, HR, and that's her line item. Apparently, you can't change that, right, you said?
No.
That has to.
I can't change the description because I can't change the description because we've already used that line item. I can
Okay.
create a new line item that says Assistant Administrator, HR Director, but you're not gonna have the history.
So just leave it the way, can we do it as well, now everybody's been told.
Right, oh yes, if we get the new software, we will be changing that.
Okay,
A lot of different account numbers.
That was just it was a question a couple of people had asked me, so I just wanted to clarify that. But so that's actually for a dual title, because she's the HR coordinator as well as the assistant town administrator, so that's why that number is where it is.
And on that line item, it looks like there's been a big jump over the last few years.
Yeah, so there's a grade increase where she went up a grade. And also, there was the 2% plus the COLA from last year. And the 1,500 longevity is in it now.
Then she went to a grade A,
Yeah.
so.
So that's what-
It's a considerable increase over the last couple of years, but there's been some steps. I see you cut additional hours by 14. By $14,000. You think that's going to be adequate, that 75?
Well, we'll see. I think it will be. But, you know, there's an area where we're looking to fill the gaps that surfaced, so.
The additional hours really cover,
It just covers, it's more in case, you know, when you need something and you need people to come in. Sometimes you have to hire somebody more than the prior person,
we
so
did
it's
it
not in
with
the
the
budget.
health agent last year when
Yeah.
we increased his hours because the budget was voted for his salary line. Any additional money came out of additional hours for
Yep.
town hall. And that's what that account is there for. It's also, if somebody goes out on a disability and we have to replace that spot, we have some leeway to fill in that vacancy. Anybody else have any questions on the selectmen's side of the budget?
Got a question.
Yes, sir.
I brought this up before. At one point, the capital outlay had a reserve fund, and I guess it's gone now. So now I see that there's a project manager reserve, amount $75,000 in the 2024 budget. What is that for?
Yeah, and it was $600 in 2022, right?
What was that?
No, 60,000, sorry, wrong line. I apologize.
We've spent 979 this year.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what Elaine said that was, but I don't.
On what, on the, yeah, so that's that's for things that come up during the year. Might be doing an appraisal, it might be something to do with, which one are you talking about, John?
I'm talking, well, my point is this, if there's any capital in that, 42,000 that got spent in 2022, looks like we only spent $1,000 in 2023. If there's any capital spent out of this line item, that it should be vetted through capital outlay is my
So I
concern.
don't think there's any capital purchases.
So I can get a copy of what's in the $42,000, you can send me that
You get
detail.
that? Yeah. You're a select board member, you get what you want.
Send that to me too, will you, sir?
No.
So right now, there is, so there is no funding for capital outlay items that happen outside of town meeting.
Not that fit the capital outlay. So, again, sometimes
do
if
it
there's
out of the
if there's
FinCom
an
reserve.
issue that something breaks down and you need to get something, you know, obviously you're gonna buy it. So if it's, you can't wait, you might not be able to wait a year to get it on a capital outlay program.
No, I understand that, but we used to have a reserve for capital outlay and a reserve for the finance committee. So there was no waiting. If you had a problem, you had a capital issue, it got vetted.
Oh, really?
It came to a public meeting and whatnot. So it sounds like you're doing it, but through the
Yeah,
finance
we're
committee
doing it through
reserve.
finance now.
So
Yeah,
the
when the new bylaw came out that put capital outlay under FinCom,
Gotcha.
they decided to rely on the reserve fund to
For
cover
all
both.
capital. Got it.
Yeah, we did it with we did it last year with the opportunity to pick up that truck for O&M, that we saved about, I don't know, $60,000 doing it that way. And then the year before, when when CARES Act money was gonna pay for the Cascade machine at the fire station, we used FinCom reserve to give Craig the authorization that we'd back it up and go order the machine. If you got reimbursed by CARES, great. If you didn't get reimbursed by CARES, that $71,000 would come out of our reserve account. So that was technically a capital expense, but the machine was putting oil, literally oil, in the air tanks for the firefighters. So, you know, they were getting them filled in Plymouth, and they were having somebody try to put Band-Aids on this thing. So it wasn't one of these things where we could wait. And we did it the year before, I believe, with all the PPE gear. When their PPE gear was out of whack, and we sat down and we endorsed $500,000 for new PPE gear, and that went to town meeting. And that's the year that we didn't have a capital outlay committee, so FinCom did it all.
So Sue just mentioned too, there may be at times where there's a change order in a project, and that may initiate purchasing something that could technically be on a capital outlay plan in another time, so.
I think
So
honestly
just-
and truly, it's an unnecessary line item, and I think it's a fluff line, to be
Yeah,
honest
I
with you.
don't think it's a fluff line, but
I
I think
think
it's
they
a,
spent
it's a
$900
protection
last year.
line.
I think it's
No,
a
I know
fluff
it,
line.
because some years, you know, like others say, some years something comes up, and you gotta have it somewhere.
Okay?
It's not like we use it for anything
I'd like to
else.
see us move project management, $75,000 down to the FinCom. Seriously.
Mhm.
So that we don't have, no disrespect, we don't have administration in the office saying, well, we'll just pull it out of this account, without any kind of explanation to anyone as to where that money's going.
I do know that it was under Mr. Malinowski's,
Fluff account.
he arranged it. We had the police station, fire station, a whole bunch of projects
Oh, yeah.
going. Change orders were coming in fast and furious. It was a way to handle all those and have the money on hand without having to go to FinCom or someplace in order to get something
No, we're
done.
not building anything like that anymore now.
I'm just saying, that was the origin of
Those
the
days are gone.
project.
I think there needs to be oversight on that particular account. That's just me personally.
I would agree.
That's just the way, I mean, $75,000. And we all know in previous lifetimes, that there was a lot of slush built into some of this budget. And that's why a lot of things could get done without it being in the original quote for the budget, because we know where we're gonna grab the money from. And they were intentionally overfunded. And those that have history in this town, you are well aware of it, John's well aware of it,
At
Pat's
the
well
time
aware
that this was
of it.
created, it wasn't.
It wasn't done to be deceptive. It was done to expedite a process, and I understand that. You're right. We had 3 big projects going on, and then we built in a playground, and a lot of stuff was happening. But that's not the case anymore. So this $75,000 should come, this project management should come under the purview of the Finance Committee for some oversight. Or capital outlay, doesn't matter to me which, but it should come under some additional oversight.
I
Or a
just-
caveat of they can't spend it until they notify FinCom what the hell they're doing with it.
It would have to be fluid enough, though, that it wouldn't require a meeting of the Finance Committee to release the funds. You'd have to word it in such a way that the FinCom chair, if you want it under the FinCom, would be allowed if it's an ongoing project that needs to be dealt with immediately.
We did that with the chair of the building committee for the fire station.
But I would say most vendors have 30-day terms. There's nothing that needs to be done immediately. You submit
I
a
don't
change
know.
order, you get it paid.
When you're in the middle of a building project, something can come up that needs an immediate response. So,
Well, you're gonna approve it no matter what. It's gonna be a change order. I just think it needs to be a transparent change
I'm not
order.
disagreeing with that. I'm just talking about whatever mechanism you come up with needs to be more fluid than calling a meeting of the Finance Committee to approve it.
Okay, but I just would like to see more oversight on it, that's all.
If I may,
Sure.
the amount seems high considering the last 2 years' expenditures. You only spent 43K in 22 and under $1,000 in 23, so why 75?
Because that's what it was.
That's what yeah.
Established to be when we had all the ongoing projects. It just never got adjusted after the projects dropped off.
So if the budget's tight, this seems like an account that could be trimmed a little.
You could take
We
50
have to-
grand out of
We
it,
have
put
to
it
fill the
somewhere.
gaps of the board's votes too.
Sorry?
So we have to fund those votes of the board, both here and last meeting.
Right,
Where
the
where we
new
took
hire
things
stuff
off
with
the
police,
capital
new hire stuff
plan.
with the
Yeah,
fire.
yeah.
This
So
Seems like an
again,
account that
this is probably what we can
could have
do.
some excess
Yeah.
to cover that.
Yep. So we'll work on that.
You're welcome.
I just,
By tomorrow
it's just an
night?
observation, but
By tomorrow night, because
By
it's
tomorrow
it's
night?
our last chance.
It is your last
Yeah,
chance.
yeah.
So that $75,000 line item should, and I agree,
So,
it either should go away
well,
or
you
cut
know,
it by 50 grand and take the, and put the money elsewhere in the budget. We just added money to planning. We added 5,000 to Council on Aging, we added 4,900 to veterans, we put money back in the police account.
Of fire.
We have an overtime disaster coming up with the police account. I absolutely think that we don't need to have $75,000 in project management. If we get into that kind of a corner someplace, we have reserve money, we have reserve accounts, and that's what that money's there for, because it requires additional oversight. It's too vague an item, and there's too much money in it.
My only caution would be that when we're talking about bonding stuff and having some big projects start up again, and the budget would need to be nimble to respond to last minute overages or change orders. So whatever mechanism you come up with needs to either authorize the town administrator to expend the funds on behalf of the FinCom, whatever you want to do. It's just that it had a legitimate purpose originally. If it's too high now because we don't have the projects running, my only concern is that when we're back running projects again, that the purpose, it still met a purpose that was needed at the
I
time.
don't disagree,
So,
but I also know for a fact that when a change order comes down the road, you sign off on the change order, and it's not even 30 days to get paid for it. Change orders are lucky if they get paid once every 5 months.
but you have to
So-
authorize it. You need,
Well, you're not gonna stop the project.
well, if the
This
change
siding
order,
gess done in the building, and they take some siding off and find that half a wall is falling
you
down,
don't
there's gonna
approve
be a
every,
change
you don't
order.
approve every change order that comes through, you challenge them.
Challenge.
Anyway,
Sorry. So do you want to reduce that down to 25,000 and then,
Reduced down to 0, but that's me.
well,
Oh,
again,
wait a minute, no, listen, no, right away. John, back me up here.
Yes.
He wants to reduce it to 25,000, I said 0. 12.5?
25. I think 25 is good.
Last time I asked you to help me out.
I got another question now. Municipal insurance, we've got, we're at 336,000 for the, I guess, 6 months.
no, so the way that works is you pay it up front.
So we are paying, we are front loading it,
Yeah.
is my
Yeah,
question.
you get a discount if you do that, so we take the discount.
Got it.
We don't, put that into a prepaid and then like take 1/12 every month?
No, they give us a discount to pay it all up front.
No, I
Upfront, yeah.
get that, but you
No,
don't
it's
then
GAAP.
pay it. Yeah,
Yeah, if you're gonna prepay, you bring your balance sheet as a prepayment, and
Exactly.
you allocate 1/12 over, so you have a nice
So-
steady P and L.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I've never
A lot
done
of
it
them.
in any municipalities that I've been in, and Meg hadn't done it before either. Because otherwise, if
Okay.
there was an account there, you guys have done it in the past, I would have followed that. Whatever you guys did in the past, but it's nothing there on the balance sheet.
No, I'm just asking, like, I'm not sure what there was in the past, but
I was just
I'm
hoping
just
it-
used to,
Yeah, I was just hoping it wasn't gonna be 673,000 when I saw that for 6 months.
so should this be 410 for next year, if it's only 336 and 23?
We actually budget for the full amount in case we don't do the prepay for some reason, if the flow of money's not there. So there should be money going back into the to the free cash for next year when we close that out.
Okay.
So we're gonna leave it at the 410?
Yes.
And it was only 336? We really see that kind of an increase?
That's the discount for paying it all up front.
Yeah.
They don't budget for the discount, they budget the
Oh, 378.
true cost. It'd be 378 to 410 is the increase.
But it only cost 336?
Yeah.
by paying it up front.
By paying up front, you save.
It's a $30,000 discount?
Oh, it's like,
So why are we going up another 32,000 on top of that? No?
So you have to fully fund it going in. This is, the increase, it goes by the estimated cost, and I think Elaine got the numbers from them.
Oh, so the 410's accurate?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So am I correct then? It's gonna drop the budget for the select board down to 933, 538?
Correct. Then we can use that to fill in the gaps, that 50 grand.
Because we really have nothing going on. And if you gotta make it, 50 or 75,000 next year because there's something being built, then so be it.
Well, it's hopefully if the bond goes through, we got stuff going on.
Well, with the bond going through, we're gonna have, these two buildings are gonna get done anyway, but I don't see anything that's gonna create a need for an additional 75,000 project management number anyway.
No, but it might have to be higher than
That,
25.
actually, that's already done over there. That's, we know what that's gonna cost on the HVAC, because that's in process now. We just don't know what the town hall's gonna be. So, I'll take a motion for the selectmen's budget of 933,538.
I'll make a motion to recommend to the select board, the town administrator budget for $933,538.
Second?
Motion made and seconded to recommend for the town administrator budget of 933,538 to the select board for inclusion in the warrant. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. Okay. Finance Department.
So utilities, you get the utilities,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, did we,
utilities.
we did cut gasoline.
Yeah,
Good.
we didn't cut it below what we're spending this year.
No, but
But it
that
was
was
at-
that was at a
Initially, it
really,
was.
initially it was a crazy
requesting
number.
210, I think. So it's 446, 481.
And just for everybody's knowledge, the diesel fuel comes out of the school side of the budget. So we buy the gas, they buy the diesel.
I'll make a motion to recommend to the select board the utility budget of $446,481.
Second?
Hold on a second. Electric and street lights. This 196,481, this is the town side and all the buildings. So now we're back to the same question we had before with this solar net metering credit stuff. So this is a perfect example. If we could take $100,000 of those credits and put them on this line, it would cut this number down at 96 grand, and we could give the $100,000 to the school, so we'd be fair, and it would cut their line by $100,000. So this is something we really need to dig into.
Rather than reducing the budget, it would be easier to make a motion to move the revenue into the schools, the school's 67% and the town's 32% to reduce that.
I don't wanna do that.
The number,
I
so
wanna-
you
I wanna
wanna pay it
split it.
directly out of the,
So that's next year.
Yeah, see, I don't wanna do that. I don't wanna give the school 67% of $200,000. I wanna give the town $100,000 of that money, and I wanna give the school $100,000 of that money. The split doesn't come into play here, because we're gonna get shafted on the split. So I wanna make it equitable, because within that, I want that 100,000 the town gets, that would do the street lights and all the stop lights, which is again, the common good. So we really need to find out
Yeah, I mean,
the
that's something.
bottom line on
Yeah.
this net solar, because this would be, we could do this for next year if we get this to work out. And we could make that happen. So, and I'll take a motion for the utilities of 446, 481.
I think we already
I
voted.
made one.
She made the motion, Ron seconded
Did
it.
you second it?
Vote, and then you said, wait a minute.
I'm sorry, I did. Okay.
So was there a vote?
Made and seconded, we haven't voted yet. Made and seconded, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Now there's a vote.
Also have legal for 140,000.
Where is that?
The third page in.
Is that gonna be adequate?
Well, it's gotta be.
Okay, so here's my argument with legal. Just the same one I've had right along. I don't like a line that says legal services. I don't mind a line that says legal services, and then I want to see departments. I want to know what departments are spending what on legal services. Selectmen, X. Planning, X. Concom, X. ZBA, X. We have a right to know that. It should be subcategorized within the legal budget. So we look at this thing when, like last year, and it was $180,000, and nobody has any idea what the hell we spent $180,000 on other than the name legal. she's
Do we track
apparently
it
doesn't
that way?
agree with me.
We don't currently track it that way?
Well, you know, town council, when they bill out on a certain issue, name of the issue or what it is. So, I mean, it would take some more in-depth reporting by
That's not
them.
redacted to your copy. It's only redacted when we ask for it.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that.
Redacted to accountant, too.
It's redacted, yeah, to accounting. It's
But you still
secure
know
to
what
the,
department it was.
No,
Yeah.
I know what project it is, but not, I don't, I'm not into the legal part of it, so I wouldn't know unless somebody told me this was for planning, or this was for select board, or, I just get
Nobody
it.
thinks we have a right to know that?
nobody's saying that. You don't have the right.
Well, then
The,
why is it so heavily redacted? I understand you
Well,
want to keep an
because it's
employee's
legal.
name out of it, I get that.
Yeah.
If it's over litigation with an employee of the town, absolutely that should be redacted. I assume that would come under the selectmen's portion, and that would be a redacted item. But if it's because some developer doesn't like a decision that conservation made and they're suing us, we have a right to know this is what it's cost.
Well, you just want it broken down by department. You don't
Yeah.
necessarily want each.
No, I don't
case
want
to
it
be-
line item, I just want departments, that's all. And I think it's very easy to break down into the multiple departments.
Yeah, she's gonna look into that, call council.
Okay. In that case, I'm glad that it's 140 and not the 109 that was proposed originally, because I don't think the 140 is going to be enough. I hope I'm wrong. Take a motion on the legal budget.
I'll make a motion to recommend to the select board the legal budget for $140,000.
Second?
Motion made and seconded to recommend legal budget, select board for 140,000. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? 7-0. Now we get into the finance. They just be on that other one, so they just be subcategories, that's all.
So we-
So on the finance committee, obviously our salaries, we can't all abstain from voting on our salaries, but they are. Grant program stays at 75,000. The
The grant program's at 25,000.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, at 20, I'm tired. It's 25,000. The, where's the reserve?
Can I
Where's the
just-
reserve account? I don't see a reserve account.
Okay.
All right, everybody already has a copy of this. Here, you have it back. I got the one you gave us.
Sue, I thought that the grant program used to be above the line as well.
No, the grant program was always in the FinCom budget. Actually, I think so wasn't the reserve account. It was in the,
Reserve account was in the finance committee budget.
yeah, I thought it was. Reserve account was always in the finance committee budget. Why is it now shared costs?
It's before the split right now.
I can look at the history from before I got here, but I have from 22 forward, it's been split this way.
Where is it?
It's on this sheet that we had from last week. I was under the impression that I knew the grant program was always, the reserve account was never in with the cherry sheets and all that other stuff. It was never in the shared costs. It was in the finance committee or finance department budget. So you're saying this is above the line, it's before the split to the schools?
Correct. Which kind of makes sense to me, that if you're putting it above the line, you're not giving the schools 76%, 67% of that. It's getting spent before we even get to the split.
Okay. I
So,
guess it makes sense. The grant program would not, well, actually, the grant program would make sense to put up there too.
Would have sworn it was up there
Well,
on one of those older
I can look into it.
sheets. I could be wrong, I just thought it was up there. So I only have one question, so for the reserve account, because that's gonna be above the line, how do we track how much they've spent out of it? Does it still have a line item that we just don't see because this is the budget?
Yeah, you guys haven't spent anything out of it so far. The 125 from last year?
Yeah,
Yeah, nothing's been spent out of there.
yeah, we may need that for police. And we're obviously looking at an increase this year to 175. From the time that the reserve account was established, it's never been increased. And with everything going up crazy the way it is, and with the budget potential, I suggested this year that this is one of those deals where if we don't spend the money, it goes right back in anyway. So it's a turn back, so.
Well, I think with the capital falling under us as
Yeah,
well, we need the.
I think to have a little bit more give in it, and the 175 actually will pick up perfectly if we take, some of that project management and add to this a little bit, so it'll take some of the sting off. But,
Okay.
what is everybody's feeling on having it above the line? It was in our budget?
no, not that one, but it was reversed, so
What?
the FY 20, I have a copy, and the FY 22 sheet had the 25,000 above the line, but not the 175. No, it did have both of them, I'm sorry, it had both of them.
So the grant was above the line?
Yep, and the 125, so.
Okay. All right. You wanna move the grant account, the 25,000 above the line too? Beth is saying that's where it was. I always thought it was in our budget, but okay.
You can move it above the line, then it's gonna change the town and school split of what's left over. And while we're on this particular page, I put North Carver Water District up in there because I was sure you guys were gonna turn down paying their debt. So now we have to come up with, where we're gonna come up with the money to pay their debt. Because you guys voted last week that they didn't have the money to pay it.
Isn't that what this 231 is?
Right, so, but I needed to show it somewhere for you guys to see that North Carver Water District wants 231,000.
Yeah.
So I expected the committee, to say, no, we're not paying that, they have to pay their own, so I would have taken that back out. Now that it has to become funded by something.
So we're now short 231,000?
Well, yes, but there's a betterment stabilization account that could cover that cost. And it was voted at town meeting, well, not even voted at town meeting, it was part of the budget process to put money into this North Carver Water District stabilization account. But it never said what the source, what the use of those funds are. So we do have a trial balance that has that money in there with no reason or no mechanism to spend it according to town meeting. I think it was either 2014 or 2015 that all of a sudden the town was just paying for this debt. And then North Carver Water District was putting money into a stabilization account, but it doesn't say what that stabilization account is used for. And it's just been collecting money.
Who controls it?
Select
Doesn't
board.
say.
North Carver Water District can't spend a penny.
It doesn't
all
say who has
select-
control over it. It just said, it just started putting money into there. And the last 2 years, we didn't add any more money into it because nobody could tell me what's the percentage.
So how much is in there now?
I don't want to say for sure, but over 200,000, like maybe 250, 270.
And there's 700 in their account now.
That's the other count.
But that's the other account, but they've gotta give the town back 220 for the filters. And they gotta give, what did we talk about the other night? There was another couple $100,000 it ended up that if we took this 231 out of their operating budget, what was left
No,
over, they only had
remember
like
that.
$330,000. And we grabbed the 231, we'd leave them with $100,000.
Who has the authority to transfer that money out of the account?
Select board.
I would assume the select board because there was nothing ever voted to say what the money was actually for,
All right, so you're gonna have to recommend to the select board that they make
to
that
pay for
transfer
that through that other.
to 231.
Yep.
Okay.
That's what I do. And leave the grant program where it is for this year in our own budget, because it's there. What difference is it gonna make? It's 25 grand. But, and leave the 175 reserve up above the line. We moved the grant program up above the line, and the school has a legitimate complaint as to now they're getting whacked something out of it. This is already done, so I just leave it alone. No?
Yeah.
I hate this school town nonsense. All right, so I guess I need a motion to approve the shared costs portion of this thing.
Talking to the finance committee, correct?
You're talking about the, yeah.
Yeah, it's on, no, it's on this sheet here.
Oh.
We need to approve this shared cost for FY '24 of,
So everything except the 231, 256?
we can approve that also with the,
And that just gets.
And then it's gonna
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
yeah, caveat that it come out, it can stay on here and just, it will come out of the selectmen will have to approve the release of that fund. So the motion is really to approve the shared cost for FY '24 of $15,169,851.
Correct.
Okay, I'll make a motion to recommend to the select board the shared cost of $15,169,851.
Second?
Motion made and seconded to recommend the shared cost of $15,169,851 for FY '24 to the select board for inclusion in the warrant. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. Now on to the finance budget.
Do we have to vote the FinCom budget?
We have to vote the FinCom budget, yes, sir. Which looks like it's a total of, total for finance and accounting.
Hold on, are we doing finance committee?
We have to.
Okay.
It's part of that whole thing, but we're also gonna be doing assessors, right?
Well, no, we're talking finance committee,
Finance
not
committee
finance
first.
director. Our committee,
Our committee has
31,025.
Oh, yeah. Yes, yes,
Okay, I'll make a motion to recommend to the select
but
board.
that's all part of all of it.
It is?
Yeah, finance committee, total salaries, total expenses, this is the grant programs in here, so it's.
No, total
28.
finance committee is at the top of page.
Yeah, go to the.
It's page one and the totals.
Yeah, it's $31,025.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, okay. Good. All right, that's right.
Okay, I'll make a motion to recommend to the select board the finance committee's budget of $31,025.
Second?
Made and seconded to recommend that the finance committee budget of $31,025 to the select board for inclusion in the warrant. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? 7-0. I need a motion on finance director accounting of $317,137. Any changes you want to make there?
The only change I have is for the new software.
The 94,000?
It's, that 94,000 is the software service fee, the new software, and we also pay for, got trumped here. It's not payroll service, but it's for bonding and stuff like that, the work that they do for us.
Is it additional money that you need?
The additional money, this was at 80, it was $12,000 less than this.
Sue, why isn't this in capital?
Well, you
It's
wanna-
computer software and
I don't wanna
subscription,
speak
so it's
for
an
you.
annual subscription. There's cost, there's some, I thought
Yes.
some of this money's gonna be ARPA money.
No, so this, some of this, there's already payments being made for the software that we currently have. That software is now going to be obsolete. So the new software, it's a new company, will be $12,000 more per year? Is that, okay. So just a continuation of payments. Is that a
So he is right, but in that, after the first 6 years of payments, it's gonna go back down to 35,000. They're allowing us to amortize the actual transition from one software to the other over the 6-year period, so we don't have to put all the money up front. But all the money up front would have been $172,000 in the first year, and then $35,000 each year for a service fee.
So is the 317 accurate, or do you need additional money added to that?
No, that's accurate.
Okay.
And this is just the accounting software?
It's for
Or
the
we
schools.
back into this stuff where we're looking at planning board software that we paid money for and threw in the trash and,
It's just the accounting software and the tax, excise tax and real estate. We could add permitting.
school will use it also?
School's also using it.
And there are modules we can add to integrate other departments into it as we go forward if it works out real good?
Yes.
And this is not SoftWrite?
No.
What is this one?
Vadar. VADAR.
Like
It is a municipal software. They're the biggest municipal software provider in Massachusetts.
Darth. Oh, sorry.
So, I got quite a question.
Cousins.
Yeah.
I don't get it. SoftWrite, obsolete, or we just don't like using it?
They're not doing any more upgrades to the system. They'll still service us, but if
So
we,
how long can we go on SoftWrite for? 1 year, 2 years, 3
they've been
years?
very vague about it to both me and Ron. It's just that they're no longer going to do any upgrades. So if the state changes any laws, those upgrades won't take place.
So they're not coming out with an updated version of SoftWrite? What, are they gonna go bankrupt?
They actually do have an upgraded version, but it was not user-friendly, and everybody that did the demos with me, assessing treasurer collectors, they're going to pick up utility billing. Ron was on board with it. They do a lot more things. They understand Massachusetts. They can do.
Vadar understands it.
Yeah,
tell 'em.
Vadar does. They're going to do a template. They're going to work with us to get the Schedule A put into the system. So you kind of just hit a button. Unless you add new account numbers, you have to add those. And same thing with the school's end of the year report. It's all going to be manualized.
How big is this company? Are
They've
they
been,
nationwide?
they pretty much just Massachusetts, and they know their Massachusetts stuff.
That's an awful lot of money to spend into a company that's just Massachusetts. I'm not sure that, what happens when they go under 3 years from now?
They've been in business for over 20 years.
So where is the prior year's expenses for this line item?
Oh, so it was under other professional services or other purchase services.
Okay,
Wait, where am I?
Where's that now?
yeah.
So where the 82,000 was under OPEB valuation and professional services, so now that's just OPEB, and then we moved the software, software and the subscriptions for the two softwares that we
Well, I
use,
see what they did.
down to the bottom.
I see what they did. That's why OPEB came down 72,000 and this went up 94,000. That pays for the new software. Because that's where they got it out of that professional services line. We've always been paying a
and you
lot of
had-
money for SoftWrite.
Yeah, and you had to have this year. It couldn't have been bumped out till next year.
It could have been, it just seems like it's a good time to do it, especially, we don't know when SoftWrite is going to say, we're not updating you anymore.
And why wouldn't ARPA pick up this tab?
So it doesn't technically fall in those categories for software. So it would be a stretch to try and get them to pay to use ARPA funds for that. And we're gonna see the same thing with some of the ones for the police. They had one an ARPA-related software for, I think, $499,000. But it generally will not fall within ARPA.
So originally it was 126,000 was on the ARPA sheet, and now it's 94?
Because it's also got the first year of service in there.
Don't know what that means.
Let me go get the worksheet.
Just seems like a significant project that should not be in an operating budget.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It should have been capital.
Because
Well,
you've got,
Go to any.
you've got
The
data,
initial
you got
cost
data migration issues, you gotta make sure it's integrated with all the departments. These things,
Purchases capital and then the annual subscription is.
they don't happen overnight.
No.
I mean, SoftWrite took like almost 6 to 9 months to get installed.
And this will be the same.
I'm assuming there's a
You're not gonna
significant
shut the
conversion.
town down and tomorrow morning, poof, we're back up and working on this new system. I'm disappointed that SoftWrite doesn't have a user-friendlier upgrade. And it's shocking to me that if you're already using the current version of SoftWrite, that the new one should be more complicated and you wouldn't know how to use that. I mean, Excel is good as Excel is, those that are good at it, like this genius right here, who's a wizard with Excel. Every time there's an upgrade to Excel, there's a couple of new features, but you don't go and relearn all of Excel all over again.
So can I ask a question, why wasn't like a subcommittee formed to go and look at that with assessors, these guys plus finance committee, somebody from the finance committee?
So they did have a subcommittee of the schools, the assessors, the finance, treasurer, collector, the users of it.
Good job.
Robert, you drinking coffee this late at night?
Drive home from Plainville, it's 9 o'clock. Wait till Ashley puts the bill in for all these hours.
Okay.
Can't have it now.
So a typical financial installation, you're talking about, maybe a new account code structure, data migration issues, making sure it's integrated between assessors and treasuries and schools. What's your implementation plan?
We're actually gonna work with them for probably another year, maybe get everything done, by December. And, I've worked with them before. We did a transition both in Freetown, I'm not trying to sell them, both in Freetown and in Abington. And the transition with them was excellent. And if we want our reports to look a way that they can't, their software doesn't report it, they can actually create a template. You want X, Y, Z for the past years, I call him up, he'll create it. So you guys can tell me what you want to see on a budget report, and they'll create it for me.
Are these numbers gonna stay in-house, or are these numbers gonna be on a different server someplace and we're gonna access it?
They're in-house, but it's cloud-based. So they have it's not through our servers, it's through their servers, and they have a warehouse that has a backup server that gets backed up every night.
That makes it even worse.
But that's what we have now. SoftWrite is also on a cloud-based system.
Yeah, I just,
Can I see that? Can you send that down?
and vetting SoftWrite with regards to going with their upgrade, any patches that they have, did we look into that as well?
Yes. We went and looked at SoftWrite and AccuFund. And
What were the cost of upgrading SoftWrite?
SoftWrite was just about the same cost as that, if you want me to go get it. I don't have the numbers right off the top of my head. Those two were very competitive. The other company was very lowball, but we'd be their first customer in Massachusetts. So,
I'm sorry.
We signed this contract?
no,
We signed the contract? Is
no,
this a
we
done
were
deal?
waiting for everybody to approve it, even up to tomorrow night.
It would be good to get a demo. I mean, I don't know if it's worth restarting the wheel all over again, but
Who was involved in the vetting process?
Is her name Tammy at the school?
I'm
Or
sorry, I
Terry?
didn't
Tammy?
mean to exclude
Tammy,
you guys.
Ron, myself, Kathy, Amanda.
What
Like,
department?
okay, so my department, yeah, right, you guys,
Well,
you guys are supposed to know who they are.
I didn't have Nancy and Betty, so I wasn't sure.
No kidding.
All right, so the school department, treasurer, assessors, and accounting. So all of finance, everybody that uses it. Obviously, we didn't go with the end users, police, fire, because for them, it's just gonna be entering invoices and reading reports.
They create their budget. These departments use SoftWrite.
They use it very limited, that it would be very easy to train them.
Did everyone at each of those entities come to the same opinion that this is the best way to go?
They could, if we could have another demo for the police.
Well, no,
Okay.
I'm talking
Oh,
about
the other,
who you
yes.
just said was involved in the vetting process,
Yes.
which are the people that would use it on a daily basis in inputting it, I mean, the schools particularly,
He
obviously.
was right on board with it right away. As soon as they said they could do a template for E&D and he wouldn't have to enter it in a spreadsheet anymore.
So did you get any documentation from each department that says what they don't like about SoftWrite and what they need it to do and it won't do, so that this new software does it? Typically, there's a significant vetting process on new software to make sure that says, you promised it can do this, can it really do this?
No, I did not.
Okay.
And I thought
I think-
I thought the major
Well,
users.
software was supposed to be the greatest thing since sliced bread, and now listen to your talk, it's not. So that's why I'm concerned
We-
about
we
going to
just-
the same thing all over again.
We just don't like their new platform. It's very complicated, and if you want to get a certain type of report, now you have to log out of their software and go into their reporting system. And just, even Ron was sitting there and he's like, I don't know, I don't like them. But we're the major users, is the finance department and the school department, so I didn't think it would be necessary to bring Melissa from the chief's office or, you know, Chief Weston if it's a very simple training course. And their documents can be scanned into the software, so anytime you want to recall a document, you don't have to go to a filing cabinet to get the stuff. So when the auditors are here for myself and for Ron, we just want these 20 invoices, and there they are. We want these 20 W-9s, and there they are.
I know I've personally gone from a software that didn't have that scanning functionality to one that does now, and it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes a lot more people in your office to scan that stuff up into it.
There's another software, you scan it all in as one PDF.
Yeah.
And then you just pick the ones you want to go to whichever vendor on that warrant for that week.
Yeah, I know, I've been through this project before where we've had to do this, and you think you don't need people, but you may end up needing like a part-time person who's just scanning all the time.
The
I
way,
don't know, I just want to make sure you think
Yeah,
about that.
the
Because
way we did
thought
it-
we were going electronic, we had to end up hiring more people because then we had to scan stuff up into a
the
software.
way we did it
system.
in Abington is that the departments scanned it when they brought it over. So if the police chief has 4 invoices, they're putting in 4 invoices. The biggest ones are gonna be the school department, O&M. They're the biggest ones that have invoices. So,
I'd like to see more vetting happen with this thing. I'm not convinced that changing vendors and $94,000 is no drop in the bucket.
Well, what are you looking for vetting? I mean, you've got your
I
people
think
that
some of
utilize
this
it
needs
on a
to be in
daily
capital.
basis, saying this is what they want to do.
Well,
Whose expertise are you looking
6
for
years,
now?
they're looking at the
If
cost-
you don't trust them,
cost of being $90.
then who is going to make the decision? If you don't want them to.
I agree with John.
I'd just like to see,
SoftWrite was the latest, greatest thing since sliced bread. Now suddenly it sucks. So I guess I have an issue with $94,000 to go to a brand-new system that, granted, I understand that Sue's familiar with, but what happens if she retires? And the person that replaces her is a SoftWrite whiz that had never heard of this company.
Well, again,
Now we got another learning
we were
curve
paying
all
something
over
for SoftWrite already, so it's not 94, it's some difference in between.
Right, it's a difference of $12,000 for the first 6 years. And SoftWrite is actually Springbrook, and they've had, probably, since I've been in accounting, 5 different companies, and they're slowly moving everybody into, and they're everything. KVS and other programs that they had are no longer available to anybody. So all of the state of the world had to switch over to their program.
So this $94,000 is only a $12,000 increase if we do nothing? Is that what you're telling me?
It's only a $12,000 increase over the 5 years, 6 years, and then after that, it drops down to $34,000.
So if,
SoftWrite was 80.
that's, yeah, that's what I'm.
No,
is-
SoftWrite was not 80. There's another vendor that we paid out of there monthly, but it's not right off the top of my tongue, so. SoftWrite was 37 and change, almost 38,000
A year, that was townwide or just us and not counting the school?
townwide.
So this 94,000 is townwide?
Correct.
So we're eating the school's portion of this?
We have been anyway.
Well, that sounds fair and equitable. Really? That's fair and equitable, given the fact that you just admitted that the two biggest users of the system are gonna be the school and O&M. So why are we picking up the entire cost? This is where I think this town goes off the rails. It's convenient when we can split something, and it's inconvenient when we end up eating the whole thing, even though it benefits. They want to be their own island, except when it's not convenient to be their own island.
I don't think that's a fair
Yeah, I
characterization.
can't.
Oh, I do. I do. I absolutely do.
We just saw some pretty good cooperation
Yeah,
with the town.
we did, because they
on
know the
capital
money's
outlay
not
and the
there.
operating budget.
Because they know the money's not there.
All right,
There's
the
a-
schools are bad people.
No, I never
and
said
therefore
that either. I never said that either, but you know as well as I do, in the 5 years I've been sitting in this seat, we've had our go-arounds with the schools. I don't have, and I'm surprised tonight that we're on the same page with them. But I have an issue with $94,000 that benefits a percentage of that, the larger percentage of that, and
This is also going to bring in a newer utility system than what we have now. Currently, our utility billing is on QuickBooks, and it takes the assistant treasurer 40 minutes to an hour to get the software plugged in and working. So if somebody calls and they want, and it's not always plugged in, because there's no room for it. If you call and you want to know your bill history, you're going to get a call back when maybe a day later. We always let them know we don't have that information available, but now it's going to be available. The ratepayers can actually create their own online account like you do with your Eversource and your Comcast, and you can see what you want to, what your bill is, what your history is. You can pay your bill online.
Is this for water?
For North Carver
Carver
water. Yeah, I'm sorry.
so why isn't this 94,000 in the shared costs?
It may be. I
Why isn't
haven't,
it above the line? I mean, seriously,
well, okay, so.
you just put 175,000 in the reserve account above the line. Why isn't this $94,000 above the line? Why is it
Because-
in the finance department?
Because it has been historically, and I haven't got any guidance on what to do with it. And like I said at a couple of other meetings, if we had a subcommittee, we could come in and understand this before it's presented to the whole committee.
Well, with no disrespect, but if the FinCom, a member of the FinCom had been involved in this thing from the get-go, it would be in the shared costs. So that's where I'd like to see it put. I'd like to get it above the line in the shared costs. Then I'll feel a whole lot warmer and fuzzier about $94,000. That's just me personally. I will defer to the vote of the Finance Committee.
Yeah. I say, well, the school budget's already been cast. So you're saying to go back to the school, let them do another budget?
It would have been better if this was all brought up a
No
long
kidding.
time ago.
It was
Or-
brought up to do ARPA funding with it, and when we talked to Plymouth County, it was determined that we couldn't. So technically, it would have gone in front of the select board on the 28th, but they told us it wasn't eligible.
Could you change this for next year so that
Yeah.
it goes to shared cost?
Sure.
Implementation costs are gonna be this year.
No, I thought it was 6 years.
6 years. But
It's gonna be 90,000 a year for 6 years?
No, you
no, it's going to be 49 for 6 years. 9 of it goes to the water billing, and then the accounting suite is a certain dollar amount.
Oh, so the whole 94,000 isn't gonna go to shared costs anyway? It's gonna
No,
be a
because
percentage of
they
that.
just use the accounting portion. We're using the assessment portion and
Alright, so-
the tax
But that's
billing
where-
and water
I get it.
billing.
Where it's budgeted though.
Yeah, exactly. So why aren't we, why isn't this getting budgeted for the billing? Why isn't the budget coming out of North Carver Water? I know these are just, I know these are a pain in the neck, believe me, I get it. But I don't understand why the finance department's picking up the cost of billing North Carver Water users.
We get the cost of the water billing now. The company doesn't bill North Carver Water District, they bill the treasurer collector's office.
I understand that.
So it's always been like that. It's history, so I'm just going along with history.
Okay, all right. I'm not trying to find fault. I just don't understand why some of this, so, just back me up a minute. The $94,000 that I seem to be very hung up on for some reason, how much of that $94,000 is actual software for your office? What's the number?
50,000.
And what will it be next year?
It's gonna stay at 50,000 for 6 years.
Okay, so we can put the $50,000 above the line for next year, and all we're gonna be eating is that portion this year, rather than screw the whole budget up.
Correct.
Is that an accurate assessment?
Yes.
Okay.
And no new equipment, no new servers, no laptops, no nothing.
Nothing.
No, that'll come next year when they'll need that.
Alan, be nice.
All right. Anybody else? So I guess I need a motion for finance accounting of 317,137.
I'll make a motion to recommend to the select board the finance and accounting department budget for $317,137.
Second?
Motion made and seconded to recommend the budget for the finance and accounting to the select board for $317,137. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried 7-0. Need a motion on the assessing department. What else, we got any surprises there?
No.
See a $27,000 bump, a $30,000 bump, a $15,000 deduction. Contract hire consultants. Other professional services, here we go again. 15,000, what is in that other professional services line? Roughly, just, I don't need specific numbers, just.
The one for 49,000?
Yeah.
That is paying for our assessors are assessing PK to go out and do our assessments for us. But it is being reduced because we're looking to have them just do the commercial properties and and that's why the salaries is up on the top, to have a part-time person do the personal property and the real estate.
So do we go through like a workforce justification before we increase FTEs for that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Anybody else? Need a motion for the assessors of 235,570.
I'll make a motion to recommend to the select board the assessors department budget for $235,570.
Second?
Motion made and seconded to recommend the budget of the assessors to the select board for inclusion in the warrant, 235,570. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. Treasurer collector, any surprises there?
No.
Minus payroll services is $22,000.
That used to be paid out of other professional services, other purchase services, which is reduced to 25, so we moved that down.
Okay, you took the 26,000 out of that.
Yep.
That's fine. Supplies. Legal tax title. Legal and tax title is $25,000.
That's correct.
Oh, that's for
That's
liens.
for liens and, yeah,
Okay.
foreclosures.
Anybody else on treasurer collector? I need a motion for the treasurer collector's budget of $332,650.
I'll make a motion to recommend to the select board the treasurer collector budget for $332,650.
Second?
Motion made and seconded to recommend to the select board the treasurer collector's budget of $332,650. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. I think that's it.
Did we already vote on IT?
That's what I just asked.
Oh,
What was
I
that?
remember voting on that.
IT.
I
Information.
don't really have it on, yeah, we can anyhow. I don't have it on the agenda, but we gotta vote on it anyhow. We don't have any more time, so.
I'll make a motion to recommend to the select board the information technology budget for $50,780.
Second?
Yeah, that's pretty reasonable this year. Motion made and seconded to recommend the IT budget of $50,708, select board for inclusion in the warrant. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. That's it. Town Administrator, Finance Director update. I know it's late. What?
We gotta do the capital committee. Salaries, right?
What?
There's one for capital. Salaries for $750.
Make the motion. Oh, you
Should I
can't
make the motion?
Ron, make the motion for capital. $750.
Make a motion for the capital outlay committee for $750.
Need another second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded for capital for $750 be included in the warrant. All those in favor, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Happy now?
And I'm abstaining.
Such a stickler.
What? After we had to vote on that one?
Like it didn't make you make a motion on your own. You guys want to give us an update as to what your thoughts are on this? I know it's getting late. I apologize.
Can
I
I
think
just-
you still got work to do. This is pretty self-explanatory, but I'll certainly give you guys some time to speak about it if you want to.
Can you guys just take a look at one line, item on the second to last page? The short-term interest for loans is $120,000. So when we go out to borrow for the
Second to the
HVAC,
last
the first year, we're only gonna have to pay the interest until we know what the actual borrowing is. So it's 90,000, but I put a little bit more in there just in case we went and did short-term borrowings for any of the other projects too.
What page?
What are we looking at?
It's called it's right above employee benefits, short-term interest on loans.
On this sheet?
No, this one.
All right.
Okay, sorry.
Second to last page.
Well, they're looking at that,
Oh, there it
trying to figure out what the heck is she talking about? Second middle last page.
Oh, yeah, short-term interest on loans.
That 120? And that's in the expense, so.
Until you go out for permanent bonding, it will be here as just the interest, and then once we go to the permanent borrowing on the project, then we'll put it in a capital project
Okay,
account.
that's what I was thinking, okay.
Sorry, so interest only for the first 3 years?
For the first year.
First year.
Right here. It's just sort of like one line item, 120,
Oh, I see it now.
yeah,
Okay,
kind
thank
of
you.
lines of.
I see.
And we need to vote on this one, right? Did we make a motion?
On that? Okay.
I'll make a motion to recommend to the select board the short-term interest on loans for $120,000.
Second?
Motion made and seconded to recommend a short-term interest on loans line item for $120,000. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now, did you want to take a moment and talk about this turn back sheet? Or do you want to save that for another rainy day? This is all pretty explanatory with keep remaining balance, give back the remaining balance. Am I to understand that you're gonna take the stuff that's highlighted in yellow, and that's gonna be an item that's gonna be placed on the warrant to see if the town will vote to clear these? How are we gonna do that?
Actually, my thought was to make them available for capital for the deficit and the items that they're looking to fund.
But don't we have to still vote to give the money back?
No, the last town meeting, we just put it in the revenue, as a revenue source to the capital department.
So we can take this $427,612.84 and roll it into capital.
Correct.
And then we can take the $1.6 million that we have set aside for the library and the town hall, if town meeting votes to short-term borrow and then eventually bond these two projects, then that money can also go back into capital and put the capital plan back on track.
Correct. And any monies that are left that don't get spent for the FY '24 capital, we'll vote to put in that special capital trust fund.
Okay, so point of clarification, so can we use that 1.6 for these capital requests that we have in front of us now? Or we're saying they can be used till next year?
I think if town meeting votes it, this money can come out of what is sitting in the accounts right now, and it can go into this capital plan for FY '24.
So we have to prepare our warrant article as if we have this 1.6.
Yeah, you'd go, I think we'd come up with call it a Plan B, if you will, and you tie the articles together. So if the town votes this way, then this is the outcome of what we're gonna do with the money. The town says no to this, then we're not gonna be able to do any of these things with the money. And we go revert back to the trimmed down version of the capital plan.
And
So,
we'll
so our
get,
warrant article will have.
Can
two
we do it that way?
sections.
we'll get the proper wording from council to make sure that it's done properly.
Yeah, because if you recall, and I go back a couple of years, there was a couple of articles for some reason, and I got the short straw to present them. And there was two articles presented at the same time, and there was a challenge brought to that. But because the second article hinged on the first article, it was approved or allowed by council to bring both articles before town meeting, because you really couldn't vote on them separately. You had to have the info for both
We
articles.
just
This
have
would
to
be
make
the
sure
same
bonding
thing.
Gets voted first.
Yeah, you'd have to, this would be the capital plan if you do this.
Right.
This would be the capital plan if you don't do this. So there almost needs to be a Plan B.
Okay.
Well, it's either that, or maybe you break down your capital item request in certain segments. You know how we used to do, instead of having
Yes.
a list of 15 items, it would say A, B, C, and D. And
Yes.
A is the ones we know we can do, B is the one
Yeah.
that maybe, and C is a wish
Yeah,
list.
and then we take them separately anyhow, so. And then we can actually do this is what we can do with what we have. And then his item B would be, if we do the bonding, then we can go on to item C. And if we don't, if item B fails, then C becomes, withdrawn. So maybe you can do something like that.
Can we get the capital list and this money list in Excel sent to us?
Sure.
Because the accountant in me is like hating all my pencil scratches. And
I know.
have an Excel copy that I can sort with, that would make me very happy.
Yeah, can you send that out? And I'll send it to everybody. Send it to me and Beth and
Thank you.
Jen.
Sue,
and-
why do we still have a health insurance reserve from 2017?
Because we had two of them and we didn't sweep the second one.
Okay, but it's not on the list to be swept.
Should be swept.
It's
That's a question that I have as well, because
Oh, okay.
Yes, it
that's
should
not
be.
my money, I didn't put it in there. I
Yeah.
can tell, I can tell you, I went to everybody in their own department to get this information. So that health insurance reserve, according to Ron Griffin, was set aside in case the health insurance prices went higher than we expected. So it's been sitting there since 2017, and we've always been able to cover the cost of health insurance.
Was Ron here in 2017?
No.
No, he just got the information from somebody. Whoever was, I don't know.
Scott Robert had about it.
Yeah.
Scott knew about it and Brad knew about it. This was when everybody was freaked out over health insurance rates were going through the roof. This is, I think, that there was some changes to health insurances and everybody was freaked. And this was, I think, this was prior to even, Rick, this was Michael's way of putting
Yeah.
money. This was the in-case account, is what it boiled down to.
They predicted
So do we
one
wanna sleep
year
it?
of an 8 to 10% increase, and it didn't turn out.
Yeah,
I think it turned out to be 6.
yeah. I think they were planning even a bigger increase than that, and it turned out to fizzle, so. But
So-
there was preliminary info that it could have been as much as like been a 15% increase, and everybody was freaking out over it.
So Human Resources also has a startup from 2016 for 32,000 left.
They're doing better, because Human Resources used to have a line item that was,
Just thinking anything that old would just close out.
Didn't something happen all this year that they spent money on it?
But it was 8 years old.
No, I think I'm going by memory, but I think it used to be something where it was, I don't know.
I thought it was
Whatever
seminar
expenses
training,
run through it,
ongoing
yeah.
training.
Bringing somebody on, new
Yeah,
employee, doing some
yeah,
kind of
like
training.
an assistant HR, and there was all kinds of rules and regulations that were changing to HR, and I think that was for training
I
material.
bet if you get a history, you'll probably see spending every single year, so you might want to ask for that and just.
Yeah.
But again, the other thing is it shouldn't be, it
shouldn't
should be
be
a
there.
department as an
Yeah.
expense if you have it every single year. It's a
That's what I
recurring
mean.
expense.
Right.
It doesn't belong.
And there used to be a line item in the selectmen's budget for HR.
Yep.
A separate line item for HR. So, you might wanna look into what that is. Anybody else? Okay, our next meeting is tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, right here. With the selectmen. Now, they have a 5 o'clock start to their meeting, so, Mark Townsend assured me that he would do his very best to keep the time on schedule for 7 PM. So it could be, he said, don't get upset if it's 7:15, or don't, it could be 7:30, depends on how contentious some of the stuff that's on their agenda is. I sent everybody a copy of their agenda, so you all see that it's pretty complex. John has the luxury of being here tomorrow from 5 o'clock. And getting out of
Can't get
here at 9:30 tonight, so he's doing exceptionally well. I'll take a motion to adjourn, unless anybody else has a comment. Now I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And your vote?
Motion to adjourn capital.
Second.
I won't be
Have a
here
good
tomorrow
night, guys. I'm gonna write down the time.